Well, how sweet it is, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Welcome to the dining room table and the court of public opinion. It's October the 3rd, ladies and gentlemen. If it's your birthday, I hope it's going to be a lovely day. If it's a day of celebration for one reason or another, I hope it's going to be great. Here, well, I don't know where you're listening to the show, but in Adelaide it is hardly spring. I'll put it to you that way. Hardly spring. Kind of looking out the window, it's rather murky. Murky. Is that an official weather forecast word? Murky. We got
I'd say gloomy.
Gloomy, yeah, well, that's
like
right.
like a lot of things around us at the moment.
The accuracy is always murky.
Yeah. Tony, Gary, Caroline is here. The dog's just given us a woof. Anyway, you can give us a ring if you'd like to, and give us a woof. 0491 65 68 60 is the telephone number. Speaking of the weather, sort of the weather, daylight saving this coming Sunday,
2 a.m.
Yeah. And yes, it is official. It is bad for your health.
We don't want daylight saving. We're just talking to Liz about it.
Yeah, well, look, it is bad for your health.
But we do have a long weekend to recover from it.
True, but no, it's worse than that, because if you change or influence your body's circadian rhythm twice a year, and that's what it does set up a whole lot of things internally that are very disturbing. I'll tell you about it later.
So does crossing the international date line.
Yeah.
You only do that once a year. You do.
Well, some people
Some
do
of
it
us.
more often. The Prime Minister does it often.
Is it true that water goes... What are you whispering about? You're funny. You get right up to the microphone and start whispering.
He's complaining about the food.
There's no feeling in there. Look, it's going to be hollow.
Oh, God, you're right.
It's hollow.
So, Caroline,
It's hollow.
official complaint.
Customer complaint being lodged.
What do you call it?
What's
Sorry, back to the story.
No, I was just going to ask, does the water go down the drain clockwise in one hemisphere and anti-clockwise
Indeed it
in the
does.
other? Why?
Well, that's the
Gravity.
magnetism, wouldn't it? Well,
Well, we have an official complaint, Caroline.
I'm feeling.
The catering department has let us down.
Is that Woolworths, is it? Oh, I won't go there.
You've been, oh dear, another low blow for Woolworths.
That's how they're making a profit. They're not putting any chocolate in the pastries. Well done,
What do you-
Woolies.
I had one before and I had chocolate. Did I get the only
What do you call those things?
You probably took the chocolate from this one and added it to yours.
the listeners are wondering what the hell we're talking
We've
about.
got some
I know,
arnott's here in the middle that's chocolate coated. Maybe that's better. Oh,
All right, stop
beautiful.
feeding your faces, ladies and gentlemen.
The court of public opinion is in disarray this morning.
You would think,
He's
I need
made a
my gavel.
sandwich.
I need my
Please.
gavel.
I fixed it.
Oh, God,
What a great start,
it looks
Jeremy.
like...
I
Now
know.
it looks like
It's
Groucho
Chubby
Marx.
Checker's birthday. Let's all do the twist.
No. I haven't got the knees for it anymore.
83 years of age he is.
It'd be an interesting subject to
Well,
find.
actually, that's an interesting
Let's
point you
twist
raised, because
again.
you say he's 83 years of age. It's also 83 days to Christmas. How's that for a
You are-
How
coincidence?
about that?
You
Isn't
are a
that
genius.
marvellous?
You're full of information.
This is remarkable.
He's got a PhD in trivia, this man.
Everyone should be listening to this program to pick up things like that.
Well, they're
It makes a
beginning-
difference to your
I
life.
hear they're beginning to.
And what Einstein's saying have you got for today?
No, not today.
Confucius? No? Nothing?
Confucius say a man lying on railroad track, not necessarily... Whoops, no, can't say that one.
No, don't say that one.
Can't use that word.
Maria!
I know what you think.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How sweet it is to be with you all.
How sweet it is to be with you.
You'll be with us here one day in the studio,
We've
Maria.
invited you.
Yeah, you come on. You're always welcome.
It'll be diet chocolate that day.
No. Could we have some order in the court of public opinion, please?
Oh, thank you for the invitation. I might take you up on it one day.
Good.
Okay. Look, this introduction of declared shopping precincts,
Yes.
how bloody stupid.
Why? Why is it stupid?
Because they'll move somewhere else. You know, Attorney General
Kyan
Kayama,
Ma, yep.
he said they're committed to ensuring South Australia has a strong and effective law. Well, I wish it would. Young thugs wreaking havoc across the state and the city. What we need declare the whole state would be more sensible.
Well, what would you do? How would you police that? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, just
Deterrence.
across the whole state, you don't have to wand. As old-fashioned policing of years ago, we had a law-abiding state. People didn't go around with machetes.
No. Yeah, go on.
Like we've said, Jeremy, we imported our troubles.
Absolutely.
You know, we never had Australians running around with machetes.
Well, we had bodgies and widgies, but they were fairly benign.
Yes,
And
they
mods
were.
and rockers.
And rods and what are they?
Mods.
Oh, mods and rockers.
Yeah,
Jeremy's a bit
rockers.
50s. Some of us are more 60s.
But you've got to ask the question, Maria, why would the SOPOL be focusing on soft targets like octogenarians at Burnside Shopping Centre, Marion Shopping Centre? Why not go to Arndale and Colonnades? I guarantee the Vietnamese and some of our coloured people carry a little bit more hardware there than Burnside.
Oh, they just wanted to show that they are doing something. So that's why they picked Burnside, because they knew, as they are always messaging us and brainwashing us, there is no problem. You know, our statistics show that it's very low, and the public are imagining all these things. You know, drip feeding areas, like I say, is stupid. You know, we need the Premier, the Police Commissioner, the top brass, police parliament to get real. You know, we've had 30 years, you know, of the judiciary, you know, letting these people off a slap on the wrist. You know, they're supposed to be looking after the public.
Well, Maria, did you hear what happened in Melbourne yesterday?
Yes, that young child that's got 2 arms full of charges of thievery and so forth. They let him go for a holiday overseas.
Yes.
That too is bloody stupid.
It's a terrible example for that magistrate to set.
Yes, it is. So all these other ones will say, oh, you know, I can do all these crimes and everything, and plead, you know, that I've had a hard life and I didn't have a teddy bear. You know, I was so traumatised. Well, the whole state is traumatised with what's going on.
You know, they don't even have to plead they've had a hard life and a difficult upbringing or anything like that. The whole judicial system in Melbourne is soft, and I think it is soft because politically somebody, I don't know, the party or the Premier or someone, the Attorney General, decided that the courts were not going to be allowed to do their job. They started hiring or appointing magistrates of the left, and before you know where you are, you've got a completely different culture in the courts.
Yes. Now, we need that 30-year revolving door to be slammed shut. As I've said many, many times, tough love is required. They've looked, they've trialled, they've rehabilitated, and nothing's worked. Take a leaf out of Singapore law book.
Yep.
Their citizens comply with their laws willingly. They don't have repeat offenders like here that don't comply. So now that footy has finished and summer is nearly here, these repeat offenders can be, Maria's trial would be to be transferred beg your pardon, transported to the Adelaide Oval to be caned and lashed. But for not complying with the law. It works in Singapore, so why not here?
Let me, Maria, give you a woke update in the USA, that the US military and the FBI, and we're talking about President Trump, Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel, who are responsible for all this. So remember Richard Levine?
No?
A four-star admiral.
Okay.
So Richard Levine also then became head of the health department under the Democrats in the US.
Yeah.
He became Rachel Levine.
No, I don't remember.
So that's true.
Right.
So in the week that's just passed, there was a declaration of authority and summons where the president called together over 800 military generals
From all over the world.
from all their places, all over the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Over 800 to Quantico in Virginia,
Sat them all down.
and told them a few things.
Boy, oh boy, yeah.
So there's not to be any more fat generals, no fat admirals, no dudes in dresses,
And by the way, get your hair cut.
and
You could have heard a pin drop.
and the order is to seek out the gender dysphoric people, the tranny people, and people in the FBI and the military have to pass the prescribed fitness test. There's none of this wokery that will make exceptions.
Why are
because
we
they're
all
women.
grinning?
There's no inclusion.
Because we love it, that's why.
Well, I'm going to be fascinated to see. John Bruni's here at about 9:30. I'd love to know what he thinks is going to be the fallout, because when those guys from the administration walked out of that room, the generals did not stand. They did not applaud. There was stony silence. Now, if you've got you've got all the brass right there, and you've told them how they have transgressed and how they are going to be stopped from further transgressing. Now, what happens if it's so ingrained into these people that they go away and they say, well, I think what we have to do is have a coup. We have to get rid of this lot.
First thing I thought of.
Yeah,
Yep,
I mean,
you're right.
He is poking the bear.
Yep, he is.
Trump,
Yes.
I mean.
The army will rise up.
But I think that
Navy will rise
we
up.
have. I give respect to what Maria was talking about. We've got to reintroduce proper standards, particularly here in Australia. I mean, we're behind the eight ball, as you know, Maria, with all this stuff, because the wokery still exists.
We've got to get rid of that.
Gary's a former educator, and he would appreciate this. I mean, he could address his class in the old days, boys and girls. Well, that's now banned.
How can you stop making an observation like that?
The teachers now have got to call their class cherubs or sweethearts or stuff like that.
You couldn't do that either. You get pinned against the wall if you called a girl a cherub or a boy a cherub.
So there's a woke update here in Australia. We're still going through all this nonsense.
It's absolutely appalling.
Well, like our army generals, I don't know whether we call them generals or not. Well, they are very fat as well and top heavy. There's no boots on the ground. They are minimal, and it's all top brass. You know, maybe.
But of course, Trump in the US at this meeting said to them, if they don't like what he's saying,
leave
the room. He also made comment that if you're not going to follow the orders, I can sack you on the spot.
He said, "You better find a new way of earning a living."
Now people will, criticise Trump and call him all sorts of names for being dogmatic and hard and ruthless and yada yada, another dictator. But hang on, what's he doing that's wrong?
Nothing.
It's quite true.
In the court of public opinion, it's going to go down very well. But my problem with it is that he's attacking the situation from the wrong end. And it's a long-term operation. You've got to go into Annapolis, and you've got to go into West Point, and you've got to you've got to go into the schools, because that is where this rubbish starts. The woke starts with the kids.
Yeah, but maybe he's done it that way to really shake up the top brass because they're too comfortable.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to our problem, these tobacco wars can be stopped.
You can imagine them all drawing their tummies in as he said that.
having less for lunch.
All right, Maria, tobacco wars, what about them?
Yeah, freight's coming into the airports and the seaports and so forth. There is equipment, X-ray machines that aren't used or manned. AI could be used at the X-ray tunnels on the conveyor belts to detect, wait a minute, put my teeth back in my mouth, detect all sorts of illegal contraband, cigarettes, vapes, drugs. They're only checking for IEDs. This policy could apply to Australia Post, all freight companies, FedEx, Star Trek, Global Freight Logistics. Problem solved. But as you say, everyone, they don't want law-abiding states, countries, because as we're worrying about our lives and that, we're distracted from the real issues.
Yeah, but
They're
Maria,
about climate change, global warming and all that shit. Get away from all that because it's a whole lot of shit and help protect our country.
Maria,
our people.
Maria, we could fix the the illegal tobacco thing pretty quickly. We could fix a lot of the drug problems that we have. We only inspect 10% of the containers that come into this country.
Yeah.
You would only, even if you lost 70% of your cargo, you would still be making enough profit out of that which got through to make the whole thing worthwhile.
Nothing should get through. Nothing.
Then you've got to have people who inspect every container. That's what you've got to do.
Why don't the government just drop the cigarette excise and then they'd actually get more money? And because they've driven it underground, they're going to lose it forever. That's the obvious solution.
It's just ridiculous. All these Labor states that are woke, get rid of that. Get back to sanity like we had.
Maria for Prime Minister.
Back to basics and tough love, and people will be safe. And this is what Parliament should be doing. Don't think about themselves and their games and their they did it and we didn't do it and all that sort of paraphernalia. Don't go looking for dirt.
Maria,
after us.
You're absolutely correct in what you're saying. The problem for you, me, Jeremy, and everyone around the dining room table is that the public has voted these people in and likely to vote them back in. Malinowskis will win the next state election here in South Australia. So Shuin Albanese will win it next time, whether he's Prime Minister or not. He might get
if he
rolled.
ever comes back to Australia.
Well, he's hardly.
He's got a free ticket around the world.
He hasn't put a crease in the Prime Minister's chair.
You don't think he's having an affair with Penny Wong, do you?
No.
No, that's not possible.
Penny doesn't bat that side, Gary.
Maria, thank you so much. I got to move on.
I was just being naughty.
But lovely of you to call and look forward to talking to you next week. I hope you will ring us back. Caroline just brought me this. Trump declares war on cartels. US enters non-international armed conflict. What the hell is non-international armed conflict? Well, he did say, he made a big point of no more wars. I'm not going to get America involved in any more wars.
Oh, no, Donald wouldn't do that.
So an internal thing is different. Donald Trump has declared war on drug cartels and notified Congress that the United States is now engaged in a non-international armed conflict. The extraordinary escalation by the president follows a series of recent strikes on drug smuggling vessels operated by terrorist organizations in the Caribbean. Trump's declaration is intended to place an ironclad legal framework around military action. According to international law, a country may kill enemy fighters even when they pose no threat and detain them indefinitely without a trial. In a confidential memo, this is hot off the press, is it?
Well, that's it. Yeah. I'm not sending him a Christmas card this year.
Oh, boy. They're so hard
Donald,
to please.
it's over.
Is he disrupting your operations?
Well, I would have thought that what he did was just called murder.
Anyway, in a confidential memo sent to lawmakers on Thursday, the president calls the cartel gangsters unlawful combatants whose actions constitute an armed attack on the United States of America. So there.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Now, I'll give you that was appropriate, the American Patrol. It was a flukish thing to come on. Yeah. Okay. 0491 65 68 60. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Liz Ellicus is here. Tony Denton is here. Gary's here. Andy Martin just walked through the door. He's not here officially. He's working. He's working from home. That's the big thing.
It's an outside broadcast.
That's what it is. I mentioned John Bruni's going to be with us at 9:30, around about 9:30. We're going to have somewhere after 10. Professor Plimer is going to be with us after 10. And yes, he is in town and he will drop by. Comes down the street, lives up the way. What else is there? Oh, yes, Leith Van Onselen.
Now, how is he connected to the other Van Onselens? Is there a connection?
I don't know. I must ask him. It's an unusual name, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is what he said, which is what put me onto the story. South Australia is regarded as the nation's leader in renewable energy, with the highest penetration of wind and solar generation in the country. South Australia closed its last coal-fired power plant in 2016. Now generates more than 3/4 of its electricity from wind and solar. But then again, we get it from across the border. If the sun ain't shining and the wind ain't blowing, what do?
We get coal-fired electricity.
And we get brown coal-fired electricity, which is even worse. The high cost of...
Well, no, it's not worse. It's the cheapest.
Yeah, but from a pollution point of view...
Whose side are you on now?
Well, I'm just saying it's such a crazy, stupid argument.
Well, of course.
The coal is going to be burned, so why don't we burn the most pure and do it in the most modern...
We export it to China and India, and they burn it.
Yeah. Anyway, South Australia has the highest electricity rates on the NEM at over 40 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, it's sometimes more than 40 cents per kilowatt hour. 49 cents. Sometimes up to 55 cents. Adelaide is the capital city of, you could call it, renewable energy, and we have the most expensive electricity. So the whole thing is counterintuitive. Leith Van Onselen is an economist. He runs an outfit called Macro Business, and I might ask him too about this 5% deposit thing that the government has come up with. Because they say that it's not going to make any difference to the cost of housing. I can't believe that. You know, you're going to give consumption a boost like that, and you don't expect that's going to boost the prices?
He actually was on Sky News last night.
I didn't see it.
No, he was on, and he.
What was he talking about?
He did speak about the 5% deposit. Said that's not a good thing at all, and he can explain that. And he's also talking about much of our people that are coming into our Australian universities, which in New South Wales 51% are overseas students in our Australian universities, and bugger all English requirements are required.
Well, what are they going to do Gary, because you're an ex-teacher, what are they going to do with the... they're just going to have to lower the standard.
They've lowered the standard long ago. A credit is only 63% from memory.
What did it used to be?
75.
Yeah, well...
distinction was even higher.
It's a road to hell, isn't it?
Oh, it's down the tube, the whole thing.
Look, everything's been degraded, Jeremy. I mean, SAPOL now, to get more people, recruits into the force, have lowered their reading, writing and arithmetic standards to 60% pass.
But, they have a recruiting problem. Well, not only the police, but the Army, Navy and the Air Force, they all have recruiting problems. Well,
they've created environments where people don't want to either go there in the first place, or if they do go there, SAPOL new recruits often don't last more than a couple of years.
Well, if you want to attract people to the police force, you should have in your school, starting in kindergarten, the building of respect for the police force, a love of country. That might cause people to want to join the army.
Well, there's a parallel there in teaching, which we have discussed formally, in that they got rid of all the teachers' colleges, degraded the profession entirely, and now they're wondering why kids start throwing chairs at teachers. Well, the teachers have got no idea how to control them because they haven't been taught to do it.
And love of country, Jeremy, when
same thing.
We used to have one Australian flag, now we have three to choose from.
And
people are confused.
Yeah, pick a flag.
Any flag. Let's have another. Oh, we've got the rainbow one too.
Maybe we could make one for
that
public
outside,
opinion.
That does fly outside many council chambers now.
I wonder why.
You should go to Berlin. They're everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not making any social commentary. I'm just making an observation.
Did I see the Jolly Roger over Jeremy's garage?
When I was in Berlin earlier this year, there were rainbow flags literally. It was carpet bombed with rainbow flags.
Well, you wouldn't do that in the Middle East, would you? You couldn't.
Would perhaps potentially
wouldn't be advisable.
Would be a problem. Would be a problem. I don't think it'd be convivial.
One of the strangest signs of these demonstrations, these Palestinian demonstrations, one of the strangest things you see is the Gays for Gaza. And you think to yourself, if you're gay and you go to Gaza, you're in big trouble. You wouldn't be seen walking down the street.
John
Bruni's arrived.
He may have a comment about that one.
Well, I just find it really weird that I arrived just as you're speaking about Gays for Gaza. Is there some sort of hidden message in that?
No. I just think it's just a conflict of interest when you see that at demonstrations.
That would make an ideal bumper sticker. Gays for Gaza.
Look, don't laugh. I'm sure they're out there.
I'm sure they'd be rather welcome right now. But usually they get hurled off from the top of a building. I don't think there's a building standing now in Gaza, so they'd be they'd be thick on the ground now.
Come out again.
Yeah.
And is that why our foreign minister hasn't visited the area? John, you think maybe? Could there be a connection there?
Oh, Les, I don't know. maybe.
You heard the attack, Yom Kippur, most important day in the Jewish calendar. This guy, a British citizen of Syrian origin, drives his car into a synagogue where the parishioners are just basically praying and honouring God, gets out of his car with a knife, kills two, wounds several. Do these people really think, it comes back to this multicultural thing, can it be possible that anyone would be so naive as to imagine that you can bring people from different places who have for centuries had a deep-seated hatred and expect them to fit in and become benign and calm and loving?
And can I add another question to the mix there so John can answer too? And that is that this attack has happened in Manchester, and that's the same place where the Ariana Grande concert was attacked. So is there a connection No connection.
No. But, good point that you raised, but no. There are things that just happen because of serendipity and, someone takes a chance. But to answer Jeremy's questions, I think that we really have to look at, we're talking about two things here, not just the one thing. Because there is another problem which no one wants to talk about, the degree of insanity that's in our communities, that we have allowed freedom of movement and freedom of action. And again, we've done it for all the right reasons. We don't want to have funny farms anymore that were cruel and unusual punishment for those who were, suffering from mental maladies where you would want them to be isolated from the community because they posed a danger to themselves and others. Now, we cannot just say this is a Muslim thing, this is a Jewish thing, this is a what. There are these people everywhere, and we don't have the mechanisms, nor do we want to reintroduce the mechanisms of control necessary.
Why?
Well, because we're a genteel society. We are not the sort of society that wants to go back to the 19th century.
But what if it doesn't work?
Well, that's just too bad. We're going to have to all suck it up. And I mean, if you happen to be one of those poor parishioners in a synagogue being either, driven over by a vehicle or stabbed by a maniac, it's insanity however you cut it. It's got no... Look, there are plenty of Muslims who would look at that with abject horror and say, what the hell? And then they'd be fearing for their own safety because everyone else is going to turn on them. Every other non-Muslim is going to turn on them because, of course, there's the guilt by association. I'm Muslim, so therefore this guy's an insane Muslim guy, and so therefore it's going to wash over me.
Yeah.
And that's not good for intercommunal relations, right?
Look, when Tony Burke who represents a fairly strong Muslim seat in Western Sydney, when he goes to the airport to welcome the Palestinian refugees personally, and we know that probably 90% of the Palestinians are Hamas.
Do we know that?
Well, I mean,
do we?
Netanyahu said it.
Well, and what you're going to believe Netanyahu? He's an archetypal liar and the most cunning Machiavellian politician you'll ever come across. He would sell his grandmother to get anything.
Well, he speaks well of you.
Well, I know. Bibi and I go back a ways. But
however, statistically, the average age of people in Gaza is 19. So many of those people and older would know no different to Hamas being the leadership.
Yes, that's true. And yet, ironically, the Israelis tolerated Hamas being the provider of welfare and care and health and everything else for the Gazans. I mean, when we look retrospectively at a problem, we have to ask ourselves the question, was there ever a better way of managing things?
I think so.
Right, now we can look at Bibi Netanyahu and look at his war in Gaza and say, well, there were a couple of things. If I took my TARDIS and went back in time, the first question that I would ask, how the hell would a ragtag group of know-nothing Hamas operatives invade southern Israel without one alarm bell being rung anywhere in Tel Aviv? I'm sorry, there is something wrong with this picture. And yet, and look, I'm not the only person raising this. There are many sensible Israelis, many of whom I know, who are also frothing at the bit because they can't take Netanyahu to account for this. It was on his watch that Hamas invaded.
Yes.
And so, therefore, who was asleep at the wheel? Because, up until October 7, everyone thought that Israel had the number one intelligence service, that Gaza was an open-air prison. There was no way that one operative, let alone, I don't know how many hundreds poured over the border, that would not happen. Someone was not doing their job. Now, if I was an Israeli, I'd be freaking ropeable, if you don't mind me saying, right? Yeah. So a lot of these issues that we raise, it's easy to go for a headline and say, oh, well, these people are a broad church, just like Catholics are a broad Catholicism is a broad church. Everything is a broad church. You've got everything ranged up on a spectrum. And then embedded within that, you've got just being a human being, which means that some people are not right in the head. And they will perpetrate things. And crazy means different things to different people. I mean, there's the type, right? People who are obviously demented. And then there are those who are living out a fantasy in their head that they've been sitting on for years, and they just hate the system. They've got a nihilistic approach to life, and they just want to take everyone down with them, right? Those people are in every community. Yeah. What do we do as a responsible secular community in Australia? Well, we don't tolerate any of this stuff. We shouldn't. What do we do about the multicultural vote grab? We dismantle it. It's now so doctrinaire that there are people in Australia who can't imagine an Australia without multiculturalism. Go figure that out. That's an insanity in and of itself.
Insanity because it doesn't work.
Of course it doesn't work, Jeremy, but the thing is that get a politician to denounce multiculturalism on air and come up with, and not only denounce it, but come up with an alternative.
But it did work because we did have this being a nation of people from everywhere. Somehow we managed to luck into getting some pretty nice, hard-working, beautiful people who really built this country.
Absolutely.
Now, why did we get it so right then and so wrong now?
Because we gave up on the whole notion. Sorry, Gary. We gave up on the whole notion of integration, social integration. The thing that made multiculturalism
assimilation.
Important. Well, that is true. So you've got people who come here now who have an expectation that they don't have to buy into Australia or being an Australian.
No.
And you know, you want to find out another communal form of insanity. It's that. What made America great? It's give us your poor and your huddled masses, and we will turn them into American citizens. And everyone was going, yeah, and raise the flag. Where does this, I mean, apart from around this table where the Australian flag is prominently positioned, where else in the community do I go and only see the Australian flag? Now I see the Australian flag, the Torres Strait Islander flag, which I don't know what that means to me. It means absolutely nothing. And the Aboriginal flag, and that means nothing to me either. Now I know it means something to someone, but they're not national flags and they're not representative of the majority culture of Australia.
It's divisive.
I would certainly argue that it's divisive. And for those people who sit back, and there are many of them, because sadly I encounter them in my work and it's quite distressing. But, you know, you've got a lot of these people who defend the system passionately and say, well, you've got the problem. You're the problem. Multiculturalism is fantastic. I love my Jewish, Muslim and everyone other. Yeah. Talk out of your backside. You don't have any of those friends. You just like the system as is because you like the methods of control that the government exercises. And quite frankly, I find it less than optimal.
There was a time when I don't know, the Serbs were Croatia, Serbia, around the Baltic states. They sort of brought a lot of the hatred that they had for each other with them.
Yes.
And you ended up with sort of ghettos and sort of, armed in, I won't say intention, but conflict brewing. I think that was about the only political assassination that we had.
Oh, yes, I remember that. 1978, something like that.
The guy on the motorbike, a Serb shot a Croat, or a Croat shot a Serb, I can't remember.
And yet, you know, it's ironic. We look at the post-World War II wave of migrants and we say, you know, these guys, and there were many Jews, Germans, Austrians. I'm half Austrian, so I understand that dynamic quite well. But, you know, there were many people who fought on both sides and, you know, were the victim of Allied bombings and whatnot. And they all came to an Anglo country and somehow congealed into Australians. Why is it that the current wave of migrants are not doing the same thing? Or at least if they are doing it, they're doing it so subtly and many people are just simply not buying in anymore. Whereas before, there was no option. You came here, you became a bloody new Australian.
Well, why can't we go back to that? Because it worked.
I agree. It does work. I mean, sociologists will tell you it works. Those who are clear thinking, of course. Those who are trying to defend the system will always tell you that the old system is a terrible thing and we should never go back to it and it's full of racism and all sorts of things. And I think to myself, well, look, you have now created a system where we categorize ourselves by our ethnicity, by our race, by our religion, by everything that is holy, and ultimately we all look at each other from the position of I do not trust my neighbour, I do not know whether that person has my back. Now, I don't know. For a functioning modern nation, that's not something that I subscribe to. I think I would like not to tolerate my neighbour. Toleration, you know, toleration in multiculturalism is viewed as a positive word, but tolerance for most of the word's existence meant, oh, you know what? I tolerate my neighbour, but I don't like it when they have their Vietnamese barbecues in the backyard. You know, their smell's all very foreign and weird. It doesn't mean that I like them. Doesn't mean that I talk to them. I tolerate them. And I hate that sort of not in my backyard, NIMBY sort of behaviour. What Australia I would like to see is an Australia where people don't look at each other at the superficial level and just see each other as Australians under the flag, all willing and able to defend ourselves. We are all, 27 million, 28 million on this continent. And if we don't look after each other, irrespective what your private belief structure happens to be, irrespective what the skin colour happens to be, then we're in serious trouble.
So what we need is some sort of national pride or glue or something that brings people together instead of dividing people.
Correct.
The philosophical and historical facts are that when the West, through colonisation, went around the world, there were authors and people who said, be warned, be careful when the East comes to the West. Now, that's been happening over the time, but there's a particular group of Eastern cultures that have come to the West, and they have quite different ideologies and principles attached through their own religion and how they want to promote their religion. Because if you look at Islamic religion and what's in the Quran, there's a general philosophy that it is the only religion. And their principle is that we have to convert others to us.
Yeah, but proselytizing, as you say, is not a Muslim thing. It's a Christian thing as well. I mean, if you look at India, for instance, there are Muslims and there are Christians in India. The Hindu government doesn't like it all that much because the Hindus don't have a tradition of proselytizing. But the Christians and the Muslims do. And they don't want Christians and Muslims increasing their populations within India. So, and really, you know, to turn your argument on its head for a moment, and that is that we have had a long history of integrating with Muslims, whether they came from Afghanistan, you know, the GAN and all that kind of thing, and the Turks and all that. Those people have long integrated into our communities and have never held their religion or their belief structure over Anglo-Australia's head. They never have, right?
Likewise for the Chinese.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So again... sorry.
Do you think that the distance between the new wave of migrants compared to the distance of similarity previously, when you were talking about basically European people coming over, do you think the distance with this current lot is so far that that's what's causing the problem? I mean, their cultural mores and so on are so different from the first wave that I was talking about post-World War II.
No, you know what's Gary, with that, I would say there is a different expectation on Australian migrants today. Now, if migrants who are coming into Australia today had the expectation, just like the migrants of the 1950s and 60s, that when they came here, their only loyalty was to that flag dangling from the mantle, that they would speak English, that was their thing, and that they wouldn't be treated as a separate citizen if they signed up to Team Australia, you wouldn't get those kind of things.
We are treating them as a separate citizen?
Yes, of course we are. We're treating them as separate citizens now because the system provides that for them, right? So you come over here from Palestine, you're traumatized by Israeli airstrikes and artillery strikes and all that kind of, you're shell-shocked in old language, if you will, right? You come to a peaceful Anglo community, but you still wake up in sweats in the middle of the night and you've got this harbouring resentment against the people who had been oppressing you. And you've got no integrative measure that unifies your trauma and to your lifestyle in Australia, realising that lifestyle means that maybe your neighbour is Jewish, right? You're going to have some problems here because there's that thing that's missing, and that is that integrative element.
Leave your luggage at the door. Come on in, but leave your luggage at the door.
If I may make a further comment, I'm a big fan of the Estonian society here in South Australia.
Yep.
And like the Italian
microphone,
groups,
Gary.
Like the Italian groups and German groups post World War II, they set up their own little societies, and they kind of huddled around and found confidence in each other's company and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Do you think that we're jumping the gun a bit, and that the groups that we're talking about at the moment that are currently coming in, do you think that over a period of time they will integrate?
No, and the reason why I say that, and coming from my own experience, my parents and I were members of the Austrian club for decades, Vogela Fulan, up in Panem for decades, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, the club circuit was really for the ethnic insiders. It wasn't really an Anglo thing. We didn't really go out there like we do today. Today we spill our guts everywhere. It's like, I'm a Friulano, I'm an Austrian, I'm a whatever, I fly whatever flag I want. Publicly, back in those days, it was in that sort of circle. You knew they existed. If I had an Anglo friend and I brought them to, Schützenfest, for instance, when it was still based out in Harndorf, that was a big deal for them because it's like, oh, I've got a friend who's part Austrian and he's invited me over to, and then we would be able to shower them in a bit of German culture. But that's different from today, where today the expectation is, you can bring your entire culture to Australia and live out your culture here. That's different. That's not saying...
And it doesn't work.
So this comes down to something very important, but no one talks about, the public-private divide. Who I pray to, what my ethnic, distinctions are, and what my racial peculiarities happen to be, those are my private things. They're things that I will share with my friends if they're interested in, but I'm not going to bludgeon them over the head with my differences.
So you're not going to come in Lederhausen next week?
No, I'm not. I will.
What a disappointment!
Well, I will wear my feathered cap and my lederhosen at home, thanks, in the privacy of my home.
Now, John. We were talking earlier about this wonderful gathering of the generals in Virginia. And the lecture, the dressing down that they got. How is that going to work? No more fat generals walking around the Pentagon.
Well, and spoken by that archetypal clown Pete Hegseth, the guy that's got tattoos of all the kind of right-wing groups and associations you think is pretty inappropriate for a guy of his stature. The guy, and there are people who defend Hegseth by saying, but John, he's a soldier. And as a soldier, he's going to be a soldier. And I looked at that assembled room full of generals who, have been through the wars and have grown into their career and now are at a certain point where they are way past physical fitness and there is no expectation on them to keep a ripped body of a 20-year-old because basically they are desk jockeys and they do fly around a lot and have lots of really good lunches. And good luck to them because they deserve it. They served their country and they gave their body during their prime. They don't have to give their body while they're in their 60s and going on to their 70s. I mean, that is just puerile 12-year-old BS fantasy.
How's it going to play out?
Well, I mean, there's going to be silent resistance. There's going to be simmering resentment.
You don't think there could be a coup?
Funnily enough, I normally meet up with a bunch of retrobates on a Thursday morning for coffee, and we always.
What about a Friday morning?
These are the worst kind of retrobates. No. But we were having this discussion, and we were sort of playing out the scenario because I do think now. There is a very real possibility because, I mean, again, the lecture that Trump and Hegseth gave was concerning if you're an American because one of the things they focused on was this so-called enemy within. Now, I don't even pretend to be an American. I'm a dispassionate observer of all things American. I'm a proud Australian. End of story. But what I saw disturbed me because what now is the enemy within? Well, if you're a MAGA supporter, the enemy within are the Democrats and all their transgender, weird, whatevers and peculiarities. Okay, fine. But they are still Americans. And what the US president, the current US president, has forgotten, because I think that my observation of his Quantico speech was that he's completely demented now. If there was ever any evidence that Donald Trump has lost a plot, all you need to do was listen to the 70 minutes. Yeah, oh, God help me. I've listened to too much of this guy. I think I'm going nuts. But anyway, you just have to listen to him only to figure out that there is nothing that made sense in that entire speech. He was talking about firefighters being shot from buildings. He was talking about police people. He was talking about the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. Well, and where does that all lead to? You know, you've ripped out flag officers from all over the world, the elite of the elite, looking after America's national security, to give them a dressing down because they're fat, and to give them some rambling speech.
Maybe we should put Trump in a uniform and see how he fronts up next to the others.
Oh, you mean that draft dodger with the bone spurs? Oh, yeah. I'm sorry.
I'm sure he'd love that. He'd cut quite a figure, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah.
That he's got on him.
Well, I think he'll have a hard time putting his pants over his man nappy, but, you know. Oh, did I say that out loud?
As Jeremy said earlier, he speaks very highly of you.
Yeah.
This was a great LinkedIn article you wrote a couple of days
Oh,
ago.
thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, just to go back to the Middle East for a second.
Yeah.
This
20-point peace plan?
Yeah, the peace plan. Now, it looks from this morning's news that the hierarchy safely in luxury hotel rooms far, far away are all for it. But the guy with the gun, the head of the armed Hamas on the spot in Gaza doesn't like it, which means it's not going to happen. Is that right?
Well, it's a bit more complex than that. Let me unpack. So, you're right. The average terrorist who's been living like a rat in a hole, being blasted left, right, and centre, and seeing most of their family liquidated, will not like it. But Bibi Netanyahu made something very clear, and sorry, Bibi, I'm going to have to name your name again, but in a very negative way, and that is, there will be no Palestine. Now, I don't know whether or not anyone heard that in all the guff that comes out of Washington, D.C., but the only thing I heard was Bibi Netanyahu saying, there will be no Palestine. Now, that's both interesting and a little bit disturbing, because now we've got countries like Australia, France, UK, Spain, Portugal, you know, they're all backing a Palestinian state. Riddle me this. What Palestinian state, right? Gaza has now been completely... look, they may as well have used a nuclear weapon. It's gone. It's finished for all love and money. There is nothing there to build.
Rubble.
And let me explain something about the long-forgotten war that has been conducted by Jewish settlers against Palestinian communities in the West Bank, aided and abetted by the Israeli governments, who never stopped the expansion of Jewish settlements in land that was, in many previous peace deals, you know, set aside for Palestinians. Right? There has been a level of BS and lying from every Israeli government about a peace deal. They have all said, we're going to be signing up to a reasonable peace deal. But then it's about the Jewish settlers in the West Bank, right? So the biggest territory that the Palestinians had always had reserved for them was the West Bank. The West Bank and Gaza together, so long as they were functional and so long as they were majority Palestinian run, owned, whatever, would form the nub or a nucleus of a state. If you take a map today and you see where the Palestinian communities are in the West Bank, there are little pockets here, they're all disconnected from each other. Now, the West Bank, for your listeners, is not a huge territory. I mean, you can cross it in maybe a couple of hours, both east to west, north to south. It's not a huge territory, right? But if you're a Palestinian and you had, you know, Cousin Joe living a couple of communities up in the north or down in the south, that journey wouldn't take you a couple of hours. It would take you maybe 2 or 3 days. And then there's the constant, checkpoints that you have to go through, the lines that are there, because people, you know, it's not just one individual who wants to move from one side of the West Bank to the other. There are multiples of them. So you've got people who are traveling for days just to either conduct business or just to have family time. You know, I mean... whether one wants to say that the Palestinians are Untermensch, and I'll use the German word here for the, you know, unsavory underclass, and you say they deserve nothing but hell, well, they've had hell for a long time now, and it doesn't seem to be modifying their behaviour.
What's the history of the West Bank? Wasn't that taken in the Six-Day War?
Yes, so Gaza was taken from Egypt, and the West Bank was taken from Jordan.
So the Israelis actually own it. They got it. They won it in the war.
Well, they did, but they did also inherit a very large Palestinian population, which initially they didn't really know what to do with, because they didn't have the capacity, nor did they have the numbers on the ground to make it happen. So they took a much longer approach to ethnically cleanse areas, salami slicing tactics. I mean, West Bank was more salami slicing than anything else. With regard to Gaza, well, they had, small Jewish communities there until 2005, and then Ariel Sharon withdrew them. But there were only about 6,000 Jewish settlers in Gaza, not really a sustainable population, as happened in the West Bank. And the good story about what Ariel Sharon was all about was that, we'll withdraw Jewish settlements from Gaza and we'll let the Gazans rule themselves. Okay. The Gazans were never in a very good position prior to the Jewish settlers coming in or being withdrawn. So what gave any Israeli the idea that the Gazans would be able to rule themselves responsibly? They were already a traumatized society.
Mm. Are they, when you say settlers, Jewish settlers in the West Bank, what do they do? Are they suburban type homes or are they farms?
Oh, no. They're a combination of suburban type homes and farms, but they're kind of like clusters, right? Yeah. And in those clusters, whatever the best area for agriculture is, they take away from the Palestinians, which robs them of a livelihood because the Palestinians in the West Bank are agricultural people, right? They're olive grove farmers, orange farmers.
Apparently they took a bulldozer to some of those century-old olive groves.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, too, is that many of these people have no other alternative livelihood. So what do they do when their olive groves have been either confiscated or bulldozed? They have nothing. So
they get angry.
They get angry and then they get armed because you're in that part of the world and it's a part of the world where political violence is normal. It's like you and I can have a discourse and we can have a disagreement, but by Jove, that's your right. I'm not going to pick up a cudgel and start beating you over the head to, make you understand my point of view. You either agree or you don't agree, but that kind of discourse doesn't occur in the Middle East. It's all violence.
Which brings us to New Guinea.
Yeah.
Now, what's going on there? That they went over there for the big sign-up ceremony, Prime Minister in person, and they people didn't turn up to provide a quorum for the Parliament to give it the thumbs up. Odd. Then they try to patch that up, make it look a little bit better than it looks. And the Prime Minister comes back to Australia, and now it's on again. Mm-hmm. And apparently, what's in it for us? Why are we doing that?
Resources. PNG is interesting. I mean, it's a security vulnerability for Australia because we used to run the place and then we handed it over to the local people back in 75.
Sort of, because we still support them. We pay the bills.
Absolutely we do. But the thing is that, PNG have got a lot of stuff under the ground, stuff that we want because, we want to transition from a predominantly agricultural base at some point and, have access to resources. Yeah. It gives us a bigger strategic footprint. And we want the PNG people to play nice with the Australians. And the other thing is that if we don't, the Indonesians will. And that's another security vulnerability.
And John, why would we give them an NRL team for $300 or $600 million instead of giving them a fleet of patrol boats?
Well, would they know what to do with the patrol boats?
Haven't the Australian government given them patrol boats in the past?
Yeah, they have.
Yeah,
they have. But, the patrol boats that we gave them was pretty old technology. The ones that we'd be handing over would be a level above what they'd be used to operating. So, again, they'd need to be very well schooled in the operation of those
But what's wrong with the idea?
The idea is fine, but the idea of having a rugby team is far better from a soft power perspective because we buy influence in Port Moresby and in the outlying areas where maybe, one or two of their tribal brethren will join that team.
Do they still have the rascals running around with machetes?
That's not changed. It's still a lawless place, which is really odd because we're well into the 21st century and you'd kind of think a lot of that stuff would have been over and done with, but it's a deeply, deeply tribal society.
And 800 different tribes and some of them are cannibals.
Well, let's invite someone over for lunch, shall we?
But John, if you have the magic wand, I mean, you're the expert. What's the magic wand that would, for example, placate the situation in the Middle East?
There's no magic wand. There's just
So you can't give us any optimism.
no optimism. Sorry.
Can you stay for a while, John?
I can. Yes.
Professor Plimer's with us.
You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion with Jeremy Cordeaux, where the time is 10 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time.
Hey, what's the weather for the weekend gonna be? Will it be hot, cold, rain, snow?
And the weather today in Adelaide, it will be a partly cloudy day.
You may not find us on your TV, because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by, brought to you on, brought to you by RADI.
And Ozcast just about everywhere in the world, because that's where we go, jeremycordeaux.com, with interesting guests around the dining room table. Sort of like the way radio started 103 years ago. Nothing's changed, but the technology, that's certainly changed. Professor Plimer has arrived. You're back in town, that's good, you look well.
I'm back in town. I escape the creditors and come back every now and then.
Lovely. You've been to, because you were talking a moment ago with John about Papua New Guinea. You worked there?
Yes, I've worked on the Leith Island, which is a very big gold deposit.
Come a bit closer to the microphone, Professor.
And I worked there during discovery, and that was in the, it was back in the geological past, actually. It was the mid-80s, early to mid-80s. And Leith was an interesting place, very different from mainland Papua New Guinea. I've also worked on the mainland, and Port Moresby, I think, joins Johannesburg as being one of the scariest places in the world. Yeah. It is a really dangerous place with the gangs and their weapon of mass destruction, which is a machete, and you get out of there as quick as possible. And I went up there and onto Leith, and then drove from Leith up through all the gold mining areas up into the highlands, and it is very tribal. There is a boundary that the tribes know. If you're operating or employing people there, if you're in their ground, you can only employ people from that tribe, otherwise you have trouble. There's constant violence, constant theft.
Demarcation disputes?
It's a dreadful place to work in. It's quite rich in gold. The only other resources that it's got are the oil and gas down in the southwest and the copper on Bougainville. But no sensible company would work in Papua New Guinea. And the reason for that is that it doesn't have a law that works. The mining law, which I worked under, is very flexible. It depends upon how big the brown paper bag is. And just because you've got tenements and are doing all the right things doesn't mean you're not going to get invaded by 100,000 people.
No, I can't see sort of a treaty with a country like this as you're describing, and I can't see how we could make that work if we integrated them into the armed forces. Or maybe they're fearsome like the Gurkhas. I don't know.
They're only a couple of kilometres from us, from Cape York and the islands north of there. We have to have good relationships with them. The governments have been perennially corrupt.
Yes.
I don't know how the oil companies work there, but once you get French oil companies there, you know what's going on. And so it's a place where no sensible resources company would operate because it's just too dangerous. You cannot operate a gold mine without catering for about 50% theft.
Yeah. And you've got to bribe people, and it's quite acceptable.
You've got to bribe people, you've got to fly out the gold with a very good chance of the helicopter or plane being shot down. Yeah. It's a place which is very dangerous to work in. I've had a couple of friends killed there in helicopters. It's a place where the latest census gave the population, it was plus or minus about 80%. A very large number of those people are young people.
Yes.
And it's a subsistence economy. So it's a time bomb waiting to explode. Now, we obviously have to work with our neighbours, but I don't know how you do it. No. I don't know whether rugby league football is the way to go. I don't know whether it's boosting their police or defence. We once had a country that was fairly well controlled, and that's when we had patrol officers working the villages and working through the jungles there. They were very much aware of the different language groups, the different tribal groups. And there's one really important thing about the culture of Papua New Guinea. It's a payback culture. It's a revenge culture. So if something happens to one of your relatives, there will be payback. And the payback is generally brutal. And earlier I was listening in the conversation on the Middle East. It's also a payback culture. Right. And I've worked, most of my geological life outside Australia has been actually in Islamic countries. And they have a long history of payback. And we're seeing that in many parts of the world. We see it in parts of Africa. You don't see it in South America. You don't see it in North America. And you don't see it in Asia. But it's very much tied into their culture. So I'm not so sure whether Australia can do much at all in Papua New Guinea because the whole nature of the politics there leads to tribalism and corruption and appointment of your tribal friends and relatives, and when there's a coup, then out they go, and in came a group of a different colour but operating the same way.
What's the religion?
The missionaries have been very successful, and so Christianity is there, but there's a lot of tribal religions, and earlier you jokingly mentioned about cannibalism. There is a disease called kuru, which is a prion disease, and Creutzfeldt-Jakob and these diseases are similar diseases, and you only get kuru from eating the brains of someone else with kuru. Now, kuru still exists in Papua New Guinea. So
that tells you a bit.
It tells you everything.
Now, John, with your German background, the Brits had mad cow disease. Is it true that the Germans have mad Frau disease?
Well, that's good, Jeremy. Boom, boom.
I've just been.
The Germans also own part of Papua New Guinea.
That's right.
Yes.
And that's what I was hoping that you would actually lead on to, but there you go.
I thought it was going there also.
No, how long did they have it?
Well, up until the
First World War.
First World War. So 1880 something.
And they had some colonies like Namibia. With German West Africa, which then ended up being administered by the South Africans, who then, as a result of various civil disturbances, it became and the SWAPO were the main guerrilla force involved there. It became a independent country, and I've worked in Namibia quite a bit. It's an absolutely beautiful country, and you could swear you were in parts of South Australia. Geologically, it's identical. We also, in Namibia, have a vegetation, which is a Gondwana vegetation, very similar to that which we get in parts of Australia. So the bottle tree is quite common there, as are acacias, which will spear you to death. It's an absolutely beautiful country. And Namibia works, firstly because it still uses German law, and a lot of people speak German in Namibia. And the second thing is that there's one dominant tribe, the Damarans. Whereas you don't have a dominant tribe in the Middle East or in Papua New Guinea.
It's interesting from an anthropological point of view. Why do countries, and it's sort of, I guess, it goes right back to Roman times, why do people want to go and colonise and take over and put their culture into other people's land?
Well, firstly, it's all about resources. And the Romans were great invaders, and they followed the Celts and the Carthaginians, who were very good explorers for metals. The Romans were not good explorers, but they were very good builders of
build roads,
mines, and structures. And the second thing is that obviously, if you conquer someone, you are the superior culture, and therefore you dominate. Now, I've been to underground in a number of old Roman mines at Rio Tinto in Spain. And there's an old workshop that's exposed there, and there was a fall of rock. The workshop was closed off, and you can now get into there. They had material which we still use in heavy industry. They had leather spats, they had leather aprons, and like in many underground mines, you have the workshops underground rather than on the surface. I have been to some of the old Athenian mines, and probably the best one I went to was at Lavrion, and at Lavrion, this is where Persian slaves from the Punic Wars were chained underground to work the silver lead mines. Now, back in history, we had the Shah of Persia and make a formal visit to India, and he was given as a present the game of chess. And then there was the return visit back to Persia, and the Shah asked his intellectuals, saying, look, I want a game invented, but I want a game that's not one of skill. I want it as a game of skill and chance. And they invented the game of backgammon, and that was given to the Raj as a return present. Now, in these mines of Lavrion in Attica Peninsula in Greece, there are backgammon boards cut into the limestone underground and clay dice. So clearly the chained Persian slaves, in the times when they weren't working, played backgammon. That's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life, to see this 2,500-year backgammon board cut into rock, a couple of 100 feet underground, and it tells you all about the dominance of one culture over the other. So the Greeks were using the Persians captured in the three Punic Wars to actually mine the silver, which actually funded these wars. So you can get a lot from history about understanding how populations get taken over, get dominated. It's both by power or by religion. In this case, the Romans were between various religions and Christianity, and the home of Christianity was Constantinople. It still is. The Greek Orthodox Church trains their priests in Istanbul. It's still in the same monastery they train them. So I find these aspects of history, and having travelled enormously to odd places of the world, I find it absolutely fascinating.
Interests me that with your travelling, you live in South Australia. You could live anywhere. It must be a nice compliment to South Australia that, you know, having seen the world, you still choose to make South Australia your home.
Well, I do, but Adelaide is a country town with all the benefits of a city. It's a half-hour city. I can get from home, which is only a short walk from here, and I walked down to here this morning, home to the airport in less than half an hour. It's an international airport. I've got a flight coming back from Canada fairly soon. I'm coming via Vancouver, Auckland, direct into Adelaide. That's really convenient. Not so long ago, I flew direct to Singapore and then onwards from there. I could fly westwards with some of the Middle East airlines. So it gives me what I need. But the real reason I'm in Adelaide is I couldn't be bothered to move. Once I finished up at the University of Adelaide, we said, well, we want to go back to Melbourne. We'd already lived there 4 times. We want to go to the East Coast where we've got a bit of property and hear the Pacific Ocean. And we've just got so much junk, we couldn't be bothered to move.
But if you couldn't live in South Australia, where would you live?
Probably on the Pacific coast, mid-north coast in New South Wales. We've got a couple of properties there, and I'm about to go up in a week or two's time and look at another one. I'm finding the winters are a bit cool and bleak in Adelaide. It's probably because I'm getting older.
What about the global warming? I mean, for God's sake.
Oh, well, I love the hot, dry weather. but I don't particularly enjoy the steamy weather either. I've recently in Brisbane and Roma, and too steamy for me.
Speaking of the weather, I heard on, and I know you don't approve, but I was listening to the BBC overnight, and they were talking about the...
You hadn't drunk enough.
True, probably, true. They were talking about the latest ice core examination. They were talking about melting it, how they were going to melt it to look at the CO2 and all the rest of it. And I seem to remember hearing the same sort of thing going back over a few years. They never come out and say, after we've examined these ice cores, we have a completely new knowledge of climate. Because there it is, going back 1 million years. I think this core was 1 million years. They never come out with anything that challenges the rhetoric of the moment.
Well, they do, but you never hear about it.
Won't be published.
It is, but you never hear about it. Now, there's a sequence of drill holes in Antarctica by the Russians and by the Americans and the Europeans and also in Greenland. And you can go through the layers of ice and pick out, you can work out where you are in time from various volcanic eruptions. And when these ice cores first were drilled, then extracting air bubbles out of the ice, which was air that was originally in the snow, which compressed into ice, gave us the chemistry of the atmosphere. Yeah. And by various chemical fingerprints, we could work out at what temperature it was at the poles.
Yeah.
And so you looked at this perfect correlation between temperature and carbon dioxide and changes tied into the orbit of the Earth every 100,000 years, every 43,000 years, every 21,000 years, and everything was hunky-dory. It was perfect. Mm. And then more research was done looking at this core in much greater detail. And it was shown that when you look at it in more detail, you see that every time you have a natural warming event, 600 to 1,600 years later, you actually have an increase in carbon dioxide. Mm. So it's actually warming. Natural warming that's driving the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
Not human activity.
It's not carbon dioxide in the atmosphere driving warming. Okay. Now, that's been published, but it's never been promoted in the press.
Right.
And so this is why I really have great trouble with some of these media networks who tell us we're all going to fry and die, yet they don't read the literature, they don't know the literature. And I saw that very clearly in the Senate inquiry or Senate submissions on misinformation, disinformation, and climate science and energy.
God help us.
And they have called for submissions. There were 169 submissions. Mine was 141. Now, out of all those submissions, there was not one submission by any climate institute saying we people who question the narrative are wrong, we're misinforming or disinforming. Not one.
No.
Yet there were 7 from scientists and engineers and 2 from economists, which said, look, the science is wrong and we are being misinformed by the government. This is deliberate disinformation by scientists.
Yeah.
And we haven't been called to give evidence. The 2 economists said you're absolutely bonkers to go down this path, and they showed all the numbers. The greatest number of submissions came from people who were affected by wind turbines and solar complexes, and these were farmers. And basically they were saying the government is misinforming us with this information. The wind companies are opaque. They're telling us lies. They're not giving us any information. And then there are a couple of groups in there who were claiming, all these farmers are fed and paid for by the coal industry. And that looked to me very much like these were wind farm lobbies dressed up as environmental groups.
Yeah.
And then there were 3 really important submissions, one by the Page Research Centre in Canberra, the second by Dr. Joanna Nova in Western Australia, and the third by Advance. Now, the Page Centre went through all of the environmental companies that are receiving monies from abroad. Yeah. Every year there's more than 170 million comes into Australia, into our environmental groups, who then try to stop people building coal-fired power stations, building nuclear power stations, and they are supporting the wind and solar. And we pay for that with subsidies, and we pay for that with higher electricity.
Why do you think they want to do that? Even?
It's very simple. If you break down energy, you're breaking down the structure of society, and that's what's happening. And these are the Page group named them and went through how much money they put in. Advance did the same, and Jo Nova, she showed all the superannuation groups who invested big time into the wind and solar industry, and most of these are dominated by union super funds, which of course kowtow to the ALP. And it's showing, the numbers are showing what we already knew. And this is probably the biggest fraud and corruption we've ever seen in the history of time.
Mm-hmm.
So this Senate committee, chaired by a Green, a couple of Labor people on it, an independent, one Liberal and one National.
And Matt Canavan's on it, isn't
Matt Canavan's the National. This committee, I think, will have two reports, a majority report and a minority report, and it will come down and restrict our freedoms, because a lot of the submissions came from social institutes, policy institutes, human rights institutes. Even the UN put in a submission claiming and wanting to interfere with our internal politics. And what they're trying to do is to shut down social media because they can't control what people say. They want to have an approved narrative, and if you don't follow that narrative, then as three of the submissions, two of which were from Australian government agencies, suggested that if you don't follow the government narrative, you can be jailed. Yeah. So we are facing extraordinary dangerous times, I think, when you have a government which got a third of the votes, has got almost 2/3 of the seats in Parliament, and has got carte blanche to do anything, and they are.
Yeah. But how can they attack us, for example, you in particular? Yeah. But how can they do that and say that we are spreading misinformation and disinformation?
Don't use logic. You're not following the government narrative.
No, but why can't we do the same to them? Because
we don't have the power of a government. We can't shut down your bank account. We can't deem you under a new law that we put in that you are spreading misinformation and disinformation.
Who is going to be the arbiter of information or misinformation?
It will be an appointee. Yeah. The Australian Human Rights Commission put in a submission, and I argue, and I'm just writing up an article for The Spectator on it, and I've relabelled them as the Australian Authoritarian Commission. And that's what they are. They're actually promoting authoritarianism. Yeah. This is our truth, and if you don't follow the truth, then there are legal consequences.
Well, what do we do?
Well, you fight. You do what I do, is put in a submission, you fight, you continue to make people aware that we are in very dangerous times.
John, do you see it similarly?
Yeah, I do actually, and it's really interesting just hearing what Ian has to say. I think that, we do have a problem with how we manage democracy moving forward. I mean, democracy is all about having reasonable people from different sides of the equation coming together and talking reasonably to each other and not having a shouting match to figure out what we can all live with. And at the moment, I don't see that happening in Australia. I see that there is a growing, creeping authoritarianism. And, here in Australia, because we're a left-leaning culture, it's obviously a left-leaning authoritarianism. Whether the Liberals will inherit that at some point and turn that into a right-leaning one, God only knows. But normally, we are about 15 years behind the American political cycle. So whatever we see in Trump land will probably come and visit our shores at some point. So one way or the other,
But if you, and I think, Professor, you've suggested this, that all of the right-leaning parties and groups should come together and form a conservative party and actually have numerically enough force to be able to change things.
Well, it's going to be interesting because the figures look as if the One Nation vote has increased enormously. And if they are correct, then they will have the balance of power in the upper house. Now, I have to declare an interest. Pauline Hanson's a friend of mine. I was staying at a house in Brisbane with her just recently, and a few others. Chief of Staff James Ashby was there, who's a good friend of mine. I'm not going to say who the others were in the house. And she was arguing that they're going to control the Senate, and that she thinks her daughter will get up in Tasmania. I can't drop any hints, but there's a very prominent politician who may well change sides and join One Nation in New South Wales, and that politician would end up a senator. Absolutely no doubt about it. In Queensland, they already have 2 senators. They have got another 2 in the upper house. They could end up with 8 senators. South Australia is ripe for the picking because it's a small population and 14% of the vote of what's our population, 1.8 million. It's not that many votes. So they could control the balance of power. Now, unfortunately, that party is called the Pauline Hanson One Nation Party. It's a one-person party. Members have never had a say. They've only just set up branches. But that is a right-wing party that could be the tail that wags the dog. I don't think our Trump equivalent is yet in Parliament.
No.
I think we've got to see a lot of damage and a lot of blood before we have someone who has got the charisma and stature of a Menzies to pull it all together.
Yeah.
In the interim, I think this country is going to go through very difficult financial times. I think we're going to find that the housing crisis will get worse. We will continue to import immigrants who are not of our culture and who don't want to work and who add no value to society. By contrast, we had the Italians and Greeks and others come in after the Second World War, and they've just really built this country in post-war times. So I see that we're in for very grim times financially. I think we're in for grim times morally. I think this all boils down to the fact that we've been destroying our education system over the last 50 years, and people now can't think.
And now we've got AI. We've got AI now.
Well,
does all the thinking
AI
for us.
Stops people thinking.
Oh yes, indeed.
I have done AI searches on subjects where I'm claimed to be an expert, and it's just blatantly wrong.
Yep.
And it depends upon the keywords you use as to which answer AI gives you.
Yep.
But if you know something about a subject, and I would argue that most journalists are not experts in anything, any subject at all, and if you've got a child using AI, then this is a perfect mechanism to be able to contaminate society with information that's demonstrably wrong.
Oh, I totally agree. But
I think we're living in a post-knowledge age. I think people today know less than people did 30 years ago.
Totally. But the question here, of course, and this is something that I always carp on about with my friends, when you have small children today and the school provides them with the computer, the school provides them with the iPad, the school provides them with the tools necessary for a digital age, what's that code for? I'm going to dumb your child down. I'm going to make them dependent on the platform. The platform becomes their cybernetic expression of their brain and their thinking. It does all their creativity, it does all their writing, and now the teachers who are grading the papers are also using AI in order for them to cut down on their workload. So, we have a problem. It's an easily solvable problem. Get those goddamn devices out of the schools, pick up a bloody pen, teach kids how to write, especially cursive, right? Pen, right?
Fountain pen.
Yes, indeed. And every sociologist that is commonsensical and right thinking will tell you that by using a pen and handwriting in cursive, it helps the synapses form memories. I remember when I was a university lecturer at the Adelaide University and they started bringing in their laptops to take notes. And I sat there and I thought to myself, when I was at Flinders University as an undergrad, I had my notepad, I had my pen, and I remember everything, right? These kids were just, click, 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 click. They were typing without thinking because their primary function was input, data, that's it. Not thinking about the words and the meaning of the words. And it does take time to congeal those thoughts, and only handwriting gives you that skill. But we've taken it out of the classroom now. Get a politician to explain why the digital age is the age we must have our children involved with. Because you know what? I'm from that sort of in-between generation. They started introducing the computers when I was already a young adult. So I already had the basics of reading, writing, arithmetic, and the old school way of doing things. I went to the library. The Dewey Catalogue system was my best friend. It wasn't ChatGTP. I knew what a library was. I was like a library bloodhound. I knew exactly where things were. Those kind of lost skills now, we're not going to see them back again because now everything's at your fingertip, and you don't even have to think about it. The AI will get you whatever you need.
And worse than that, some kids cannot write now.
I know.
And I had that at university. I used to set,
Yep.
for the last 25 years of my university life, I used to set them a 3,000-word essay.
Yep.
Every week. I'd hand it back 6 days later, but they had to handwrite it. And some of them could not write. Some of them had no cursive writing.
Yes.
Others would type out something and then copy it with handwriting. That was easy to tell. They never used the library. They always did a search on something, and I knew the literature so well, the scientific literature, that I knew when they were cheating. And you could always tell when they were cheating because the English was a bit better.
Yes.
What you guys are talking about are generally specifics. The broader answer to this is parenting, the social framework under which kids survive and act today, and the broader subject of big daddy government intruding on every aspect of our lives, whether it be digital ID, recording all our spending, educating our children, conditioning our children from 3 years of age, welcome to country, burning eucalyptus leaves,
all this stuff.
Misrepresenting history.
Right, yeah, well,
the whole climate change phenomena.
No. You know, it was really interesting. I recently, just before the school holidays, I went to the parent-teacher meeting at my daughter's school. And look, honestly, I love all those teachers. They were really nice and they really, they had all of the best of intentions. But I really sounded like a dinosaur from another age because I was there railing against the computers and, because my daughter has dyslexia and so, she came from behind. She's doing extremely well now, but she really did come from behind. And to a degree, did the technology help? I'm not sure. I just think she needed time to grow out of a lot of stuff, and now she's better where she is. But I always say those computers are a pox on learning, because I used to love history. I used to love going to libraries and doing my own research. And I mean, even when I was doing my PhD, I'd go to a library and I'd look at books that weren't in my field so I could get an idea of what piece of originality I could actually bring into my field from another discipline. It was what I did, and I don't understand why that magic isn't there today. Where's the curiosity? It's been drummed out of kids. And I really want an education system where kids can use their imagination freely, where they can write, where they can do all their neuroplasticity when they're young enough to understand the importance of it. And then as an adult, yes, they have to use a computer and they have to use all that kind of stuff. But when they have the basics down.
But the proof of it is just sitting here listening to you guys. The proof of it is you. What you're saying, what you've gone through works. What they're doing at the moment, you sit young people down who have come through this digital age, they can't talk, they can't put words together, they can't put an argument together.
No.
Well, they don't have intuition and they don't have the ability to analyse and to actually recognise that when they go to Wikipedia or Google or even ChatGPT, that the information that they've been given is incorrect.
Exactly
right. I mean, we know as adults that some of that and a lot of that information is just absolutely wrong. But the kids take it as being verbatim and accurate and they follow it.
Because speed now is what counts. If I can get something out, I get a 3,000-word essay to you, Ian, I'll do it. I mean, I don't have to do any library work. I don't have to do anything. All I have to do is press the button, let the thing spit it out, and then I'll hand it into you and hope to hell that you don't know what I've just done.
I wouldn't mark it because I know the subject so well.
Yep.
I would say, and I used to have students, especially Chinese students, who get 4 essays identical. And I'd call them up and say, well, gentlemen, please explain why these are identical, and if you can't, I won't mark it. In other words, this is a cumulative process. And I found in my scientific career that one of the greatest things to do was to spend some time in a library and just flick through journals I would never, ever read.
Exactly.
And you'd see something and say, oh, that's interesting.
Exactly.
And you would follow something that you've been talking about, your curiosity.
Yes. Broadening the mind.
That's been killed off with
Yes, it
AI.
has. Yes, it has.
And so you can't go down rabbit holes. A lot of them are blind. It doesn't matter. But you cannot follow your curiosity. You cannot be creative. And I fear for people who are trying to be composers or trying to write novels. Big self-promotion. I just had a book come out a fortnight ago.
Called?
It's called Always Skeptical. And it's a collection of 50 essays. The first one written in 1971 and the last one written earlier this year. A couple of them have been published in The Spectator and elsewhere, and Quadrant and places like this, but it's basically a 50-year evolution of not believing crap and being sceptical about everything.
Have you become more sceptical or less?
Oh, I'm sceptical when I'm here. and basically, it's a challenge to authority. And a lot of that arose from spending time in the Soviet Union and communist East Germany and communist Czechoslovakia and communist Poland, and then in Iran in both the Shah's time, when I was kidnapped by the Mujahideen and had to get my way out of that one.
There's a chapter in there.
And there's one also on crashing in a jet aeroplane. And so it's just the evolution of why I've come to certain political views and thinking processes. And I launched it at the CPAC conference in Brisbane. The print run of 5,000 sold out in 2 days, which is often the case. That's my latest effort. If you speak to me very kindly and give me all sorts of compliments and perhaps another cup of tea, I might bring a copy down next time.
Oh, that'd be lovely. I'm looking at a picture of it.
I haven't got any left, but yeah, that's it. Yeah,
I'm looking at a picture of it.
That's actually the front cover photograph is a photograph taken in South Australia. North of O'Leary.
Oh, that's you?
That's me.
Standing on a rock?
Standing on a rock, which geologists actually do.
Yep.
And pontificating, talking about the origin of the world, etc.
Sceptical always. Why not always sceptical?
Well, that was a title originally, and then I think it was my wife that changed to Sceptical Always. I don't care.
A view at 3/4 time.
Yes, exactly. That's being a bit generous on myself, isn't it?
Yep. $39.95. Yeah. Professor Ian Plimer, but you don't call yourself Professor, do you?
No,
you just call yourself Ian Plimer.
I don't need to do that.
Okay.
I'm confident enough to go through life without sheepskins.
Don't need it.
And
it's published by?
Connell Court Publishing. That's a husband and wife publishing company, and they've got 4 girls. They need a book from me a year because I'm their best-selling author, and they don't have a cash flow unless I put out a book.
Good.
And so I was asked, I put out a book normally for every CPAC conference, and I didn't have one, so I cobbled together all these essays, which I've got sitting around, and edited them slightly and gave it to them. I'm already working on the book for next year, and that's using a title of Lenin's book of 1906, basically despairing about what is to be done. Yeah. So CPAC, there's always 1,000 people or so that go there, and then there's mail orders that come in before. So I've probably signed about 5,000 copies over that weekend.
Wow.
I always sign copies.
Yes.
I always use the same fountain pen with the same ink.
Yeah.
If someone wants something added, I can do it. But because of this Charlie Kirk assassination, my boss has now insisted that I don't go anywhere to public meetings or advertise public meetings without security.
Yeah. Well, it's sensible, isn't it? It's unfortunate, but sensible.
Well, I stir people up, and if you speak the truth and people get upset, that's their problem. But we in Hancock Prospecting employ 244 ex-ADF people, many of them ex-SAS. So Mrs. Reinhardt flew 16 of them over to Brisbane. Said, no, you're not staying in that hotel, come and stay in my place. And when I flew in from Roma, there were 3 SAS people there to meet me, took me down to the Gold Coast where I gave a talk, took me back to where I was staying, picked me up in the morning, took me to the conference, standing behind me all the time, and one roaming around. Even going to the dunny, one of them comes with me. I mean,
well, it's probably prudent.
Well, I've been attacked before, and I've had a few death threats before. So I think she's doing the right thing, and I've got to do some things in London fairly soon, and so she's flying a couple over from Perth to be with me. And that's the world we're living in now.
Are these 2 guys today's security detail?
No, they are. They're
this chauffeur.
They're old and sort of their chest has dropped to just above their knees. But it's probably necessary because, as we were talking about earlier, people now have lost the ability to have a reasoned argument and use logic. Yep. And if they disagree, then the only solution is that of violence. And we're seeing that all over the world. I think the affairs in Manchester last night were a good example of that. So I don't like the situation of having security with me. I've had to cut down on the number of public activities I do, but that's a reality. Yeah. And if your boss says you've got to have a couple of SAS people with you, well, you do it.
Yeah. Because most people mellow as they get on. Do you think you've mellowed, or
No,
are you more?
Not at all.
No.
Read the first story in that book, and you will see why I haven't mellowed. And I'll give you one little snippet. It's a story about my grandfather, who was an unusual chap. He was fighting everything, known and unknown. He was anti-everything. He was very anti-Catholic. And every Friday he'd go down to the fish markets with his mates, and they'd buy up all the fish they could to stop the Catholics having fish on Fridays.
Oh, man.
What a futile exercise. And my wife often comments that maybe I've inherited a lot of those genes.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I haven't mellowed. And the reason for that is that I'm older, and I've got a very good bullshit detector. I have acquired quite a bit of knowledge, and I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. And you learn from those, and you can see. Yeah. If you look at what's going on, you can see that this is obviously a stupid thing to do.
What about this Woodside thing? You know, they've expanded the time where the gas can be mined. What is it, 75 years or 2075? They've taken it through too.
Yes.
And now they've said that there are 1 million cave drawings or cave carvings, Aboriginal carvings there. And for some reason, the activity, the gas mining, gas drilling, is going to affect.
Well, they're bringing that gas from offshore to onshore.
How would it affect?
Well, when you the onshore facility is a gas compression plant.
Yeah.
And this is where you've got to take out of the gas, and that particular gas there is got carbon dioxide in it. It's also got a little bit of mercury in it. It's got water vapour in it. So you have to extract that. Plus you've got to extract some of the other gases like propane. So you end up with the gas methane. Now those gas compression facilities use quite a bit of energy, which is gas energy. They do put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
The carbon dioxide you take out of the gas is released into the atmosphere. The mercury is not. And the argument is that this carbon dioxide, which is in a local area, will create acid rain and destroy those carvings. Now,
is that an argument?
Well, no, because the atmosphere shifts carbon dioxide around all the time. Secondly, it's a tropical area with the monsoons bringing acid rain every year onto those rocks. And the third thing is a lot of these are exposed to the air, so they're naturally going to erode. But it's got nothing to do with carvings. It's an anti-energy policy, and they're using the carvings as the front.
Well, they're also using Aboriginals. Not the first time that they've used Aboriginals.
Not at all. No, they're used in a lot of these activities, and the Aboriginal groups are beneficiaries when it comes to employment and when it comes to royalties.
Yes.
So it divides the Aboriginal groups. So there's, and I mentioned this Senate inquiry into misinformation and disinformation. There were probably 50 submissions where people had a pathological hatred of coal or gas, but didn't say why. They couldn't say why.
No.
They didn't give any data.
Well, it's not rational.
Well, of course it's not rational. And so people were objecting to coal and gas companies. There were various individuals named, mainly people from Sky and the Australian. You're a failure. You weren't on the list as being someone who is changing opinion. And various groups were mentioned, like the Institute of Public Affairs, the CIS in Sydney, Global Warming Policy Foundation in London, and I'm on the board of that. So this was a scattergun approach, hitting everyone who might object to the narrative.
Yeah.
And the absolute passionate hatred of gas was unbelievable.
And you've got scientists that are going along with this.
Well, they'd made no submissions. The ones who made the submissions objecting to the gas and coal were mainly social science departments in universities, policy groups, human rights, legal groups. There were some overseas groups who were putting their beak into Australian affairs. Yeah. So there is a pathological hatred of gas. Now, I don't know why people don't do their homework. Yeah. If you have an objection to gas, then you can forget cooking. You can forget restaurants. You can forget a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, I think the dumbing down that we were discussing earlier has a lot to do with the fact that we don't. Yeah, no critical thinking.
And in these compression facilities, and I went to one recently at Alpha, just out of Roma, they're really sophisticated plants where you dewater and that water is collected, cleaned up with reverse osmosis, and then it's given, not sold, it's given to the pastoralists who've converted pastoral properties into irrigation properties.
Right.
And so it's been absolutely fabulous for the local population. Roma was a dump. I remember I went there in the 60s. It then became a cattle town and now it's a gas town. You try to get a motel room in Roma, try to rent a house, you just can't do it.
Yep.
The employment is just fabulous. Now, they take out the water and then that gas is still a bit wet. And then you have to use various chemicals, a chemical, ethylene glycol, to take out the water. Then you freeze and expand the gas and take out the water. You've got to get something that's got about 60% water in it down to 40 parts per million water before you can put it into the pipelines for consumer use. The technology is absolutely incredible. The carbon dioxide is vented into the atmosphere and some of the higher gases are taken out and used to create energy. The energy on the site, the power stations run off gas. You look at these things and you say the engineering, the creativity that's gone into this, the knowledge of mathematics and physics to create this has just been phenomenal.
Well, see, this is something that I think many people in the general community, partly because of the ignorance that we were talking about earlier, but also partly because it doesn't get communicated out. You know, we have come a long way since 1900 in our engineering, in the way that we extract, in the, you know, I mean, okay, I'll put it up on the table. I mean, when Donald Trump says, I want all my people to say clean, beautiful coal every time they mention coal, you know, I mean, I think that's probably taking it a bit too far.
Well, Pennsylvania is a swinging state, and that's a coal mining state, so
exactly. And that's a political reason. But you know, nonetheless, even with coal mining, there are new methodologies that, you know, have been rolled out over the last decade that make it cleaner. It may not be clean, but it's certainly cleaner than it once was. And I think that we tend to lose sight of the fact that things aren't as bad as we claim to be. There are these doom porn merchants out there who will make their political stand and die on that hill, irrespective of what the evidence.
Well, I'm just looking at you and what you're wearing. That jacket would not be black without compounds that come from coal.
Right.
Nor would you get the dyes for your T-shirt. You wouldn't have the spectacles, the plastics, without coal. We use 6,000 products in our daily life that come from coal and oil. Most of our medicines come from coal and oil. Yet we have a group of medicos who are, I think a group that's called Doctors Against Fossil Fuels.
Oh, really?
Well, I don't want to be treated by them because how are they going to get a cannula into my veins? Because all of the stuff in that cannula come from fossil fuels.
Oh, so witch doctors against common sense medicine or something?
Yes. So you're quite right. There was a massive ignorance. When I was at school, one of the things I loved was, and this is why I got into geology, was the conversion of a rock into something I use. And I asked one of my school teachers once, I was building a crystal set. There's only, I think, a couple of us around the table who would know what that is. I was building a crystal set and winding it with copper wire. And I asked my school teacher, how do you get copper wire? He said, oh, no, I'm a bit busy at present. Come and see me in the morning. I now realise he didn't know, but he actually went and looked it up. Right. And he told me that you start with a rock with about 1% copper in it, and it's this golden coloured mineral, and then you crush it, or you mine it, and you crush it, and you grind it, and you're able to float a heavy mineral onto the surface of a liquid. And then you skim this off, and then you cook that up in a smelter, and then you refine that and put it onto plates by using electricity. And then you've got copper which you can draw out into wire. And I was just fascinated with the process, the same as I was fascinated with things like making steel or making esters, making the artificial banana flavouring, and you can do that very easily at home. I was just fascinated with these processes, and that's what got me into science. And I had teachers who, if they didn't know it, were prepared to go and look it up.
Professor Plimer is with us, and so is John Bruni and the rest around the dining room table. David.
Hello.
Hi, welcome to the dining room table.
Thank you, Jeremy.
What would you like to say?
Well, I was just listening to Professor Plimer. I just want to say that I've been following him for some years, and I think he talks a lot of sense, but he reminded me of my early days of having a crystal set as a kid, a little egg-shaped crystal set. And I used to lie awake at night quite late, 8:30 as a kid, and listen to music and probably 5DN back in those days. But yeah, they were great days.
Well, I was banned from listening to all sorts of jungle music, as my parents called it. And my solution to this was to string a wire up through the chimney in my bedroom onto the roof, and from one chimney to another, and that was the aerial, and to listen in bed with a crystal set with and later I became a bit more sophisticated and had a germanium diode there, and I used to listen to this jungle music, people like John Laws early on in his career. And I could tune it by shifting a wire from one loop to the next. And this was just fabulous. And what it really meant was that I had freedom.
Yes. Yeah. Not so different from the beginnings of radio at a dining room table down on Green Hill Road at Parkside, when God knows what the equipment looked like, but I think the signal went for 5 streets. Yeah, there's a picture right here in front of us on our dining room table. There's a picture of just exactly that. Yeah. What did you do for a living, David?
Oh, I've had a checkered career, Jeremy. I started as a graphic designer. In those days, they were called commercial artists.
Yes.
Then I built a marketing business in Adelaide.
Yeah.
A design marketing business in Beulah Road in Norwood. And we supplied creative to most of the big ad agencies in Adelaide back in those days. I'm talking early 80s, I think, from memory.
Yep.
Then we left Adelaide in the mid-90s, moved to Perth. We started, my wife and I started a recruitment business in Perth, would you believe, which went very well, and we sold that in 2007. I did a bit of property development, played with cars. If Gary's there, he would know.
Yeah, Gary's here.
Gary's here. He plays.
Hi, Gary.
What sort of cars?
Gary.
What sort of cars do you play with?
Oh, look, lately, in the last sort of 15 years, mostly Porsches, but I started off with my first car I actually bought from Gary.
Right, what was it?
It was an Austin 7 Special.
We were sitting next to each other at school at the time, and I did the deal during maths.
That's exactly right. A little alloy-bodied Austin 7 that was built by a guy called Gary Cooper in Adelaide, who later became famous for building Elfin racing cars.
Wow.
And he was a bit of a legend in the motorsport world. Gary, sadly, he's passed on now, but
that car still exists.
That was my first car.
Wow. Gary says that car still exists.
It does. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's in pieces up in the hills, but we both know who bought it from me back in the early 70s. I think $300 was the price that it changed hands at. And I think it's up in a shed in the hill somewhere.
Tony Bishop's son has it.
Oh, okay, right.
Professor Plimer drives Bentleys and Volvos.
Oh well, yeah. Now there's a man after mine. Not so much
the Bentley's
not so
bent.
Much the Volvo, but the Bentley.
The Bentley's bent. The Kangaroo's in heaven, and the car is in Melbourne.
Oh dear!
And they need a couple of parts for it. And the clowns are shipping out the parts rather than air freighting them out. So I probably won't get that until next year. Yeah.
Well,
the old Volvo is a rally car. I just use it to give myself white knuckles every now and then.
Well, Professor, I don't know if you follow a chap in the UK called Matt Armstrong. I don't know if you've ever seen his YouTube videos. but he brings luxury cars like Bentleys, etc., back to life. And he's amazed when he buys parts for them that a lot of the parts, particularly with Bentleys, are stamped VW, of course, because they're owned by VW. And he can buy the parts for about 1/10 the cost of buying them through a Bentley dealer.
Yes, well, this is a fairly new Bentley, a couple of years old. I use it as my long-distance driving car, and I've done nearly 100,000 in it. And all I need is a front spoiler, which was fractured. The radiator's leaking a bit, and rather than repairing it, they're probably getting me a new radiator, and they say the steering needs something done to it.
Right.
It was a big roo, and it changed direction, and I actually rode over it. I've had animals before put their foot through the sump. I had a wombat do that once.
A wombat?
So that was my thought. I thought, oh no, I'm going to have a hole in the sump.
Never found your foot in the glove box, did you?
Well, I can empathise. I was headbutted by a wombat once, and it hurt.
Well, I've hit everything. I hit a donkey in an Avis car once, and I was 4 kilometres from the Silverton pub west of Broken Hill.
Yes.
And I managed to get the car to the pub, pulled up, and the engine died. I've hit a horse. I've hit cattle. I've hit many roos. I've hit an eagle. I haven't hit a camel. I'm waiting for that.
And you've not been
still here. Yeah. So I do a huge amount of outback
2 bumps
driving,
or one?
But I restrict the amount of driving at night now. I just won't do it.
And you've
not
been charged with cruelty to animals yet?
Wow.
David wants to know if you've been charged for cruelty to animals.
No, not yet. But
what are the silly things doing on the road?
Well, I make sure they're dead, so there's no cruelty involved.
Well, yes.
But
dear, oh dear.
I probably the worst was hitting a donkey. And I had hoof marks across the roof of the car because it came up over the bonnet. I don't think Avis were very happy with me, but they still
they thought they'd heard them all. What are these marks, sir? They're donkey hoof prints.
Just on another subject, at one time I remember you reported in Hansard. You made some really positive comments about the use of or young people working in fast food outlets. Would you comment on that again?
Yeah, well, look, Gary, I wasn't aware that I was mentioned in Hansard until I think you mentioned it to me.
Well, they spoke very highly of you.
Oh, that's good. But, when we ran our recruitment company in Perth, young kids would come in and they from various backgrounds and various upbringings and various experience, of course. And it ranged from one young girl who my wife interviewed. It would have been her first job. I think she was about 17. And she came in and she was doing really well in the interview until it got to the part where my wife said to her, well, look, this is a first step on the ladder in an office. And, of course, at the end of the day, you'll be required to wash up the coffee cups and any dishes and tidy up the kitchen. And she said, oh, I'm not doing that. And my wife was a bit taken aback, and she said, well, my parents told me that if that was part of the job description, that I was to say, no, I wasn't doing it. And at the other end of the scale, when we got kids in, young people in who'd had experience at McDonald's, we found them to be fantastic. It was a great first step on the working ladder. They learned respect and discipline and customer service. And I don't know if it's the same today. I'm talking mid-late 90s. But we found that kids who'd been through the McDonald's experience were just fantastic.
Well, just to add to the McDonald's, I had a student once who she was in the car with me and there was a flag at half-mast. We went past it and she said, that's wrong. It was actually halfway down the mast. Yeah. And she told me that it's got to be the width of the flag down the flagpole. And I said, where'd you learn that, Jessica? She said, at McDonald's. I had to hang the flag at McDonald's, and they taught me that's the correct way for a flag to be at half-mast. And ever since then I thought, well, that's pretty impressive. I don't touch McDonald's, but
No.
but with some of those fast foods, if you store them, the rats will eat the cardboard, but they won't eat the food.
That's right.
So say that again. The flag has got to be the
one flag width down the pole. To be half-mast.
Yes.
Not halfway
and you
down the
also
pole. One flag width down, and I learned that from the Boy Scouts, and I was really impressed with it, that McDonald's had actually taught her this.
Yeah, I agree.
And Professor, to raise a flag to half-mast, you have to raise it full staff first,
And then bring it down.
and then bring it down.
David,
Don't
great to
just
talk
take
to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
A pleasure, Jeremy.
We'll
Pleasure
talk again.
indeed. Okay, thank you.
You're listening to the Court of Public Opinion with Jeremy Cordeaux, where the time is 11 a.m. Australian Central Standard Time.
Hey, what's the weather for the weekend gonna be? Will it be hot, cold, rain, snow?
And the weather today in Adelaide, it will be a partly cloudy day.
You may not find us on your TV, because in case you did not know, we're being brought to you by, brought to you on, brought to you by RADI.
It makes me smile and it makes me glad. It makes me laugh and it makes me sad. From the day I was born till the day I go, I wanna listen to the radio. It lifts me up and it turns me on.
every time you do that thing you do. I haven't heard that one before. That's our sort of extended musical break for the morning. Telephone number is 049 65 68 60. On the line, we should have Leith van Onselen. Have we?
G'day, Jeremy.
How are you, sir?
Yeah, good, thank you. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for joining us. I was telling everyone about this story that I picked up. I don't know whether you published it or somebody heard you saying it. Energy reality smacks South Australia in the face. That caught my eye.
Yes, that was actually an article that I wrote late last month, late last month. So, would you like me to give a rundown of why I think energy reality is smashing South Australians in the face?
Yes, I've read it, and I've read bits of it to our listeners, but I'd love you to give us the full explanation.
Yeah, okay. So South Australia is basically regarded as Australia's leader in renewables, right? So it has the highest. It has the highest penetration of wind and solar generation in the country.
Yep.
So, roughly 3/4 or just over 3/4 of electricity generated in South Australia over a year on average is from wind and solar. And this is often touted by your Premier and, the renewables lobby as this fantastic achievement. And there are certain periods when, in the middle of the day, when it's sunny and it's windy, that South Australia produces all of its energy from renewables. But then the downside of this is South Australia, because it's so weather dependent, wind and solar, it also has long periods, for example, when there's wind droughts and that sort of thing, and in the evening, where its power generation is highly reliant on gas, batteries, and even diesel, right? Now, the problem with this, Jeremy, is that while wind and solar are cheap on a marginal cost basis while they're working, like the middle of the day, power is cheap. The problem with it is, unlike other states which have baseload power, South Australia is incredibly reliant on gas and batteries and diesel, which are the most expensive form of energy. And what that's meant is that, during these periods of low wind and obviously an evening when there's no sun, so usually when people get home from work, that sort of thing, when power demand's the highest, South Australian power bills spike. And as a result, South Australians actually pay the highest electricity rates in the country, right? So it's for two reasons. It's because of their high reliance on gas, batteries and diesel when the wind's not blowing, and in the evening, obviously, when there's no solar. But it's also because the cost of building renewables is extremely expensive. So to have dozens and dozens of wind turbines and solar farms and all these sorts of things spread out across the state, you've got to hook that stuff up with transmission lines. Yep. You've got to provide all this infrastructure around it. All that stuff's incredibly expensive. And whenever they build this stuff, it basically goes into what's called the regulatory asset base. And the regulatory asset base then gets capitalised into your bills, right? So you've got to pay them in user fees. And as a result of this, the upshot of this is that while South Australia boasts about being the renewables energy leader, it has the highest bills in the country. And an analysis by a firm called Energize a year ago, so it's a year old, they found that as of a year ago, South Australia's power bills were 49% higher than the average
49% higher.
49% higher than the average of the rest of the states on the national energy market. So the national energy market basically captures the entire country, other than Western Australia and Northern Territory.
Now I know what you're saying is demonstrably true, because my bill per quarter has gone from something like $1,600 a quarter to $6,000 a quarter. Sometimes it's a little less, but it's never. With this misinformation and disinformation bill that's before the Senate, how can this guy, Chris Bowen, say, straight-faced, right down the barrel of the camera to the nation of Australia, that renewables are cheaper when they're not? That's a lie.
Yeah, well, absolutely. So Chris Bowen is flat out lying, because you don't have to go very far, right? So South Australia is the most expensive here. We've got the highest. It's also our renewable energy leader. But if you go to the United States, for example, California is by far the most expensive state for electricity in the United States. And guess what? California is the South Australia of the United States. It is their renewable energy leader, right?
How can we stop this nonsense? Is there any way?
Well, yeah, look, it's pretty basic stuff, right? If you end up getting rid of your, 24/7 stable baseload coal generation, which is relatively cheap, and you get rid of that and you replace it with intermittent sources of power, and then those intermittent sources of power have low energy density, they're spread out everywhere, so you need to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on transmission lines, all this sort of stuff, it's going to drive up your energy bills because not only do you have to pay for all that transmission and everything, there's also makes you more reliant on expensive sources like gas and batteries and pumped hydro, which are all very expensive to give you power when the wind's not blowing and in the evening when the sun's not shining.
And all of this,
none of this is rocket science.
No,
and Leith, I'm here with Jeremy Lesalicus, and I saw you on Sky last night, and I noticed that Topher Field has also referred to some of the things you've spoken about. But one of the things that strikes me is the manipulation of these national energy markets. And Topher Field did a very good segment, which is available on YouTube, and he talks about the segments of energy generation, which is coal, essentially, the renewables as one category, and battery being by far the most expensive. It's never no cost. It's always going to be a cost, but it's the most expensive, and it gets stacked into the energy mix at crucial times when the grid needs it. But he speaks very well about this issue of bid stacking. Are you able to summarise that very quickly for us and the listeners? Do you know what he's talking about?
Yeah. So I haven't listened to what he said, but I reckon I know what he's talking about. So basically, the way the prices work, so every 5 minutes, all the different power generators put in bids to supply energy, and the highest bid for that 5 minute period ends up setting the marginal price. Now, the problem with it is...
Can you just explain that for the listeners in the context? But I was talking about this to Jeremy this morning, that even though in that mix you'll have coal, which is the cheapest, the overriding highest price takes over, and it's not a mixture or aggregated mixture or average of the prices. It's all one.
So you're always going to be charged the highest price.
So whatever the stack is at the top, that determines the price of the entire stack.
Yeah, and the problem with it is, so in the middle of the day, it's relatively cheap because you've got solar and everything, and you're getting enough power from sources that are cheap at that period of time. The problem with it is if you wipe out your baseload coal, which is basically Australia's plan, which can produce independent of the weather, what it means is that in those times when the sun goes down, and especially in times of wind droughts, all the bids end up coming in from super expensive sources. So gas is very expensive. Batteries are very expensive, and pumped hydro is expensive. And the reason why batteries are expensive is because they can only release once twice a day presently. So basically, they try and store up the power from the middle of the day. And if you're a battery operator, you've sunk a lot of capital into that. So you want to try and buy your energy cheap during the middle of the day when you've got excess solar, but then you want to make a profit on it. And at the night time when there's no other competition from coal or anything, once coal's taken out of the mix, you can basically charge whatever you want. So gas, so you're going to have a lack of competition. You're going to have expensive power sources like gas, pumped hydro, and gas setting the price. And the price is going to be very high. And here's the other thing. Often the renewable zealots claim that, the cost of batteries are coming down, etc. The problem with it is when you get rid of coal, you're only going to have one discharge cycle a day, not two, because at the moment, the batteries charge up during the middle of the day from solar mainly, and then they release even in peak once the sun goes down. So they discharge for maybe an hour if you're lucky. Then they generally charge up overnight with coal power because coal can run 24/7, and when everyone's asleep, you don't need as much power. So they'll charge up cheaply off coal, and then they'll release in the morning again. So you get 2 discharges a day. But if you take coal out of the mix, you're only going to get 1 discharge a day. So that just means you're going to have less efficiency in the system. You're going to build all these batteries, but you're only going to be able to use them on average once a day instead of twice a day. So it just makes the whole system less efficient.
And all of this feeds into the cost of living because cost of electricity affects absolutely everything we buy, every place we go, everything we do. Now, all of this, Leith, is to fix what problem? 1% of global emissions.
That's right. It's absurd. So Australia's about 1% of carbon emissions, and even doing all this stuff, we might knock it down to 0.8% or something. Like, it's not going to do a whole lot. And all we're going to end up doing is, in some ways, you can almost argue that in some ways we're going to increase emissions, because by driving up the cost of electricity and gas, because we've got gas policy failures as well. We don't reserve our gas, even though we export 3/4 of it on the East Coast. And we're still going to be importing gas. It's going to push up the price of gas. As a result of expensive gas and expensive electricity, manufacturing is going to shut down. It already has shut down a lot, but we're going to lose the rest of it probably. And all it means is that instead of making stuff here, we're going to end up having to import it vast distances by sea using ships that burn bunker fuel, which is the dirtiest type of fuel. And it's going to probably be, all this stuff's probably going to be produced in jurisdictions that emit more emissions than we would and have worse environmental standards.
And apart from you, we don't have a media that is gutsy enough to point all this stuff out.
Yeah, it's crazy. Look, all I want from the government is honesty, right? So instead of gaslighting us and saying, "Oh, look, your bills are going to come down and Australia's going to miraculously have some sort of boom coming out of this," the reality is our bills are going to go up. The inflation, cost of living is going to go up because every single process across the supply chain is going to become more expensive, because energy is a fundamental input into everything the nation does.
There are more, I think, positive signs, Leith, that the narrative in terms of the people who are trying to change the way the government is thinking about renewables, there's some traction starting to develop, and it's the way you explain things. As, for example, the people who have now analysed, if Australia wants to get to net zero, what does it take? And it takes 25,000 more wind towers. It takes 45,000 more kilometres of roads. It takes 250 million more solar panels. Now, if one's a realist and, you listen to Bob Hawke and we're going to plant 1 million trees in 12 months, well, the people who were clever said, okay, how many trees is that per day? And it became just too much of an ask to do that. And if you look at solar panels, we've had now over 20 years of using solar panels in this country, and we've installed 74 million. Now, the realistic situation, Leith, is that to go from 74 million to another 250 million in the time frame the government is speaking about is so unrealistic and so it's just a hypothetical. It's fairy dust stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And we should also acknowledge the environmental destruction from all this stuff, right? So Australia could build, say, 5 nuclear generators, which would be the size of, say, 5 Bunnings warehouses in terms of land area. If you include the car parks and everything, they don't use much land. With one set of transmission lines going to each of those, or we can build literally thousands of wind turbines, which are intermittent power, each of which has 1,000 tonnes of reinforced concrete under each of them, each of which requires tons of steel, copper and everything, each of which requires loads of wires, service roads to be built so you can service them, oodles and oodles of land clearing and resources and tree clearing, all that sort of stuff.
Even oil to keep them lubricated.
Yeah, so all this sort of stuff. So anybody who's actually environmental and who cares about emissions and cares about the environment should be lobbying for nuclear, because nuclear is zero emission and also has the lowest environmental footprint. Wind may be zero emission while it's generating, but it's certainly not environmental. It's environmental.
And here's a bit of trivia for you, Leith, I beg your pardon. A solar panel is about 1 metre across by 1.7 metres long. And if you say, okay, 250 more of those, and even if you put them side by side, length by length, with no space in between, that occupies a space of 425 million square metres, which is equivalent to 425 square kilometres. You're talking about a patch of Australian real estate, 20 and a half kilometres square.
Which has a life. 25 years or something like that, in the future, you're going to have to replace them.
But we don't know what to do with the ones that we already have now that are coming off roofs. There's no plan by the government.
No disposal.
No objectivity about what do you do with all these panels that already... No.
Leith, what are we going to do? We can talk about it, but is there anything we can do?
Look, I hope so, but unfortunately, we've got zealots in the federal government. Chris Bowen is a lunatic. Anthony Albanese is a lunatic, and unfortunately, Australia's public service are just brainwashed with this stuff. We have a. I mean, I hate to say a woke mind virus, but we've got a complete mind virus on this sort of stuff, a net zero mind virus.
Yeah.
And look, we just got to keep telling the truth and hope that the reality gets through. But my fear is that even if we do 5 more years of this stuff, we're going to create a lot of damage, which we then can't undo. And the fact of the matter is we're going to be paying much higher energy costs, but we're also going to be paying higher taxes because the amount of subsidies that go into this stuff is just extraordinary. And you only have to point to the Snowy Hydro. I mean, that was, that's been paid for by taxpayers. The initial cost was projected to be $2 billion. It's now gone to $12 billion. It'll probably end up being $15 billion because it's years behind date. And then they want to spend at least another $5 billion just to build the transmission lines to it. So here we've got a project that is likely to be at least $20 billion, which is coming out of our taxes. And that's just one of many. So this whole experiment is going to cost us an arm and a leg, both in power bills but also taxes. And it's ultimately going to send our manufacturing offshore, what's left of it, deindustrialise the nation, and make us ultimately a lot poorer. It's just
Leith,
ridiculous policy.
Why do you think our country has allowed itself to be beholden to foreign entities who run these generation operations and the intermediaries between us and the manufacturer, supplier?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. One of the worst things Australia ever did was privatise all our utilities. I mean, it's given us more expensive energy, and not just utilities, but we've completely jumped the shark on a whole lot of areas. Why did the Rudd-Gillard government approve gas exports out of Gladstone without any requirement to reserve it for domestic use first? I mean, we are literally, East Coast Australia is the only gas exporting jurisdiction in the world that doesn't have a domestic reservation requirement. And as a result, East Coast Australia pays the highest gas prices in the world out of any exporting jurisdiction.
And
this is all policy failure.
Another bit of information which astounded me the other day. I mean, the big news in South Australia is the Roxby Downs copper mine expansion. We're talking about $1 billion. They're already looking for 1,000 workers. It's going to be big for South Australia, but when I dug into it, the draft plans for that were set in 2005, 20 years ago. And the government announcement was in November 2008. I mean, this is just madness that in Australia things take so long to, from a concept to go into fruition and to cut the soil to get some action. If this was China,
get rid of the
it happened in 1 month.
Get rid of the red tape.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, how viable is that project going to be when you've got expensive energy? I mean, the viability of that project and all the other projects are dependent on having reliable and affordable energy, and we have neither, and especially South Australia has neither. And here's the question. So at the moment, South Australia has avoided blackouts because it can import cheap brown coal power from Victoria.
Yeah.
But Victoria set a 95% renewable energy target by 2035. What happens to South Australia when Victoria becomes South Australia and it can no longer, and we have a wind drought that hits both states at the same time, and South Australia can no longer import brown coal power from Victoria? What happens when the whole of the country is basically dependent on these weather-dependent renewables, which don't work when you always need them to?
That's what you say in your article. You say, what happens when the rest of the nation goes down the South Australian path?
That's right. So at the moment, South Australia has avoided blackouts because when you have a wind drought and it's the evening and the sun's not shining, you can fire up your gas turbines, which are scheduled to close in a few years, ridiculously. But that doesn't provide you enough power. But then you import power from Victoria through the interconnector. Well, what happens when Victoria has gotten rid of all of its baseload power?
Absolutely. These people, are they just sort of working from one election to another and they've got no vision for the future?
I honestly think they're just they're blinkered zealots, and hitting this fantastical, mythical net zero target trumps everything else. It trumps cost, it trumps having energy security, it trumps self-sufficiency, it trumps having an industrial base. It's just it is their only KPI they look at,
and
they don't care about anything.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. It's futile. If Australia went net zero tomorrow and we had zero emissions, the climate would not change because we're 1% of the impact.
But you know, Chris Bowen. I heard him on. What was it now? I think it was the Insiders last week. I'm pretty sure that's right. He said when asked very briefly and with no follow-up question, Australia's contribution to global emissions is so small it doesn't matter. He said, that argument doesn't stack up. Well, the journalist should have just come back and said, well, I'm sorry, sir. Tell me why it doesn't stack up. Why are we in any way important? How do we influence anything?
That's right, especially when 2/3 of the rise in the world's carbon emissions this century have been from China alone.
Yes.
Right, so China accounts for nearly 1/3 of the world's carbon emissions. We're 1%.
That's bizarre.
China has driven 2/3 of the rise in the global carbon emissions this century.
Yep.
And China has about 1,200 coal-fired generators. It's building more, and we've got 18. And Australia's and our policymakers saying we've got to shut them out. We've got to shut them all down to be net zero, while China is literally building more every single year.
And per kilowatt hour, if you take India for an example, per kilowatt hour, they are paying about 6 cents per kilowatt hour for their power burning our coal.
Yeah, that's right. So ridiculously, China mines 10 times more coal than Australia does in a year, but it uses it all itself.
Yeah.
We export 7 times more coal than we use. A lot of that goes to China. So China is the biggest importer of coal in the world. It's also the biggest producer. It literally produces 10 times more coal than us. We only use 1/7 of the coal that we produce, and we export the rest.
Leith, while we're talking about the bizarre government that we have, housing is a problem. Affordable housing. Now, their solution, and I suspect it played a part in their re-election, 5%, the minimum deposit, a minimum deposit for first home buyers, not means tested. You can be the child of a billionaire and you'll still get the benefit of the government going guarantor for the rest of your 20% deposits. You only put 5% on the table. And they argue that is not going to increase the cost of housing. What do you say?
Oh, it's an absolute joke. So Australia's house prices are already one of the most unaffordable in the world. They're now roaring upwards, and the federal government's basically just thrown, petrol on the housing bonfire. And all it's going to end up doing is it's going to end up inflating prices and inflating the amount of household debt that's carried by households. And it also leaves future first home buyers vulnerable to a downturn, because with only a 5% deposit, if we do get a significant correction down the track, many are going to be thrown into negative equity, and also taxpayers will be on the hook because taxpayers are going to guarantee 15% of all first home buyer mortgages. And the other problem from a policy perspective, apart from ridiculousness of pumping up house prices and mortgage debt, because the government is now on the hook for these 15% of mortgages, and they've encouraged a whole bunch of marginal buyers in the market, you can bet your bottom dollar that the next time it looks like prices might come down, the government's going to intervene to try and support the market, because it's created this. It's now got skin in the game financially, so that just guarantees that prices are going to keep going up, and over the long term. And housing is going to become less and less affordable. It's just ridiculous.
And isn't this really what caused the financial crisis? What was it?
Fannie Mae.
Fannie Mac.
Yeah. Getting people into houses that they couldn't afford to buy, and in the end, they had to just put the keys in the letterbox and walk away.
That's right. Although the difference is we've got we don't have non-recourse loans like they do there, but irrespective, this is basically I'm being maybe a little bit cheeky with the language, but it's kind of like a state-sponsored subprime mortgage scheme.
Yeah, subprime. Right? That's what I was trying to think of. Subprime mortgage scandal. Yeah.
Yeah. So there certainly are degrees of that, and it was only a decade ago that financial regulators in Australia were warning about high loan-to-value ratio mortgages and how dangerous they are. And now we've got the government who's literally done a state-sponsored high loan-to-value ratio mortgage, encouraging people to borrow to the hilt, get into oodles of debt. And it's going to just push up house prices higher. And this is why I have so little respect for the Australian Treasury these days. I worked there 20 years ago. But But now it's become just a propaganda arm because the Australian Treasury has put out ridiculous analysis claiming that this 5% deposit scheme will only lift prices by 0.5%, which literally nobody believes.
What do you say it'll lift them by?
Oh, probably it could be 10% over several years, an additional 10% of price rise. But that's on top of housing that's already worth $1,035,000 per dwelling in Australia. So the average home value in Australia is $1,035,000. Just think about that. It is absurdly high. It is absurdly expensive, and the federal government wants it to go higher.
Yeah, and they got re-elected with an increased majority. Oh, boy. Interesting times ahead. Now, thank you very much, Leith. I'm very grateful for your time and your knowledge. Keep it up.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just let me know anytime you want me on.
A voice for sanity, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best to you. Leith van Onselen. He is, obviously a great economist, but he runs a company called Macro Business. Look it up. Very interesting to look that up. Tom Jones, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if you're having a birthday, let me remind you of some of the days or some of the things for which we celebrate the day. October the 3rd. Actually, October the 7th is next Tuesday, which was the day that started the latest Middle Eastern war. We seem to have them regularly.
And they want to approach the Sydney Opera House again with their protests.
Oh, I'm quite sure, yeah. Let's see, October the 3rd, 1990, reunification of East and West Germany. I remember that. Bring that wall down, Mr. Khrushchev. West German flag is raised above the Brandenburg Gate at the stroke of midnight. Oh, it is somebody's birthday. Chubby Checker. Yeah, we'll get to him. He was born 1941. Senator Bob Day with us in a second or three. Chubby Checker, American singer-songwriter, the twist, the limbo rock. Born in Spring Gully, South Carolina, on this very day. October, which one have you got? The twist? Yeah, well, let's do the twist. That's the one he's famous for. Oh, yeah! Oh, my God, my knees! And do the twist. And do the twist. Yeah. That's all right. Yeah. Oh, baby. Twist all night. Twist. And do the twist. And juxtapositioning that with this one, 1945. Golly, that's 80 years ago. 1945, Elvis Presley's first public appearance. He was 10 years old. He sang Old Shep, which of course he went on to sing later on in life, beautifully, and it was one of his big hits. But he sang Old Shep in a youth talent quest at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show in Tupelo, Mississippi. The contest was broadcast over WELO radio, and Elvis Presley, at the age of 10, wins 5th prize. What were they thinking? 5th fifth prize.
They didn't recognise talent, did they?
And what he got for his fifth prize was $5 in fair ride tickets. A little bit of musical history for you. The first facsimile photo was sent over city telephone lines in Washington, D.C. on this day. What do you think? How long ago?
1960?
No, not 1960. Anyone else?
65.
And Andy Martin's here. He'd know.
1967, guys.
No, not 1960. It was a good year. I rather liked 1967. No, the year was 1922.
Well, I know I would have thought later.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, it's amazing. It took a long time to get that going. Facsimiles, I mean. Captain James Cook anchors at Alaska on this day in 1778. Francis of Assisi, Italian founder of the Franciscan order, dies at 45. Golly, 1226. James Harriot, the British veterinarian and novelist, all creatures great and small, born in Sunderland, County Durham. He died in 1996, but he was born on this day in 1916. Hitler said a few things in his time. Hitler, on this day in 1941, says, "Russia is already broken and will never rise again." That was in a broadcast to the German people. It had lots of enthusiasm, but not a lot of accuracy. Cervical cancer could be eliminated in Australia within decades because of the government vaccination program, according to a report in the Lancet Public Health Journal, 2018. And that's pretty well come to pass, hasn't it? The Maltese Falcon, directed by John Huston, starring Humphrey Bogart and Mary Astor, premieres in New York on this day in 1941. Gary Larson, I loved his cartoons. He used to do a thing called The Far Side. He announces on this day that he's retiring from the cartooning business. 1994 was the year. And, of course, we mentioned Chubby Checker, born 1941. Now, I don't know, have we got Senator Bob Day there?
Bonjour.
Comment ça va?
C'est vendredi, bien d'être avec toi. Good to be with you, Jeremy.
You're very good with the French.
Just schoolboy French, Jeremy. I'm no linguist there. But Chubby Checker, when you said born in Spring Gully, it remind our friends at Spring Gully Pickles, our old friend Eric Webb. Did you know the Webb family, Spring Gully?
No, I don't know. I knew Graham Webb, but I don't know about the Spring Gully Webbs.
Yeah, the Spring Gully Pickles. They're quite a famous.
I know the name. I certainly know Spring Gullies. It's a family business. Is it still going?
I think so. Yeah, I think you still get Spring Gully sweet mustard pickles and so on. But no, that was interesting. Spring Gully, where Chubby Checker was born, but obviously a different Spring Gully. Look, before we get going and all the heavy, like what Leith, with 3 quick jokes.
Yes, please. A little levity.
A penguin walks into a bar, says to the barman, "Have you seen my brother?" And the barman says, "I don't know. What does he look like?" Number 2. What did the picture say to the wall?
Hang it.
First they frame you, and then they hang you.
I like that.
And number 3. What did the drummer name his 2 daughters?
What did
Anna 1, Anna 2. Now
that's very clever.
That's what it is. They are.
Anna 1, Anna 2.
Anna 1, Anna 2. Okay.
Very good.
So that's the lever. But look, picking up on what is it? Leith Van
Onselen.
Olsen. Yeah,
Onselen.
Olsen. He talked about that subprime, and when people were just dropping their keys in the letterbox, sending them back to the mortgage to the bank. They used to call it jingle mail. So the keys coming back to the bank. But very interestingly, that only happened in a few states because it all comes back to the old problem of government centralised planning, planned economies that have failed everywhere in the world. They've been tried for more than 100 years. And the problem was, the reason that they introduced that kind of those Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac subprime was because zoning laws and planning laws in some states, and this is where America has it all over Australia. They've got 50 states. We only have 6. So over there, if some states do some crazy urban planning policies like restricting urban growth, and which forces up the price of land and forces up the price of housing, other states over there like Texas and Georgia and quite a few others, they didn't do that. So they had no subprime, jingle mail housing problems at all in quite a few states in America. It only happened in the states where they had urban planning controls, because as soon as the urban planners are to blame, who influence their government masters. So they restrict the amount of supply of land, which pushes up the price, and that means people can't afford it. So then they have to invent ways of being able to, for people to be able to afford it. So they kind of shoehorn them into these high mortgages with these subprimes. So the actual rate of the loan, so they organise a 5-year loan. Well, it's fixed for 5 years on a ridiculously low rate, on the kind of premise that, look, don't worry, by the time the real rate kicks in 5 years' time, your house will be worth double and you won't have a problem. But of course, that's not what happened. So all these people kind of bought these very expensive houses at very, very low rates and with kind of these low deposits. By the time the 5 years was up, became a crisis, because then they owed more than the home was worth. So they all defaulted. So there was a movie made about it, subprime, and yet in places like Texas and Georgia that never happened. And it all comes back to government interference in trying to plan and say, right, we want people to live in this area, work in that area. We want them to have recreation and this area and shopping areas. Of course, people don't behave like that. And I think Maria started the conversation this morning about regional shopping centres, and exactly the same happened here in South Australia. When Rundle Street, which was called the premier retail strip of Australia, it was the most lucrative retail shopping strip in Australia, because the Haywoods and all the other owners of John Martin's and David Jones back in the 60s influenced the state government to restrict the number of department stores around the suburbs to only 5. So there were regional shopping centres were the only shopping centres allowed to have a department store, and the 5 centres were Elizabeth, Tea Tree Plaza, West Lakes, Colonnades Noarlunga and Marion. So that was it. And so therefore it forced people encouraged people, shall we say, to do most of their shopping in Rundle Street. And this centralised planning control of regional shopping centres, district shopping centres, neighbourhood shopping centres and local shops all said what size areas the shops could be and what supermarkets could be. And it was a disaster. It just forced up prices. But anyway, that's a bit of a history there on how government planning and zoning
and they mean well. They as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yep. But what you're saying to me, though, is that the anticipation that a minimum deposit, unmeans tested, by the way, unmeans tested, a minimum deposit of 5% will not increase the cost of housing. What do you say to that as a person who has built many, many homes and houses in his time?
Well, it's coming from people who've got absolutely no understanding of how the real world and how markets work. What they've done by their own... See, this is where Leith's term Blinken zealots is so right, because when they introduce these various zoning and planning laws which forces up or immigration laws, which forces up the price of housing, instead of admitting that they were wrong and changing the policy, they double down and say, okay, we built this wall across the road to home ownership and housing affordability. Let's invent a ladder to help people over the wall that we've built.
That's a wonderful analogy.
Yeah, so they say, we've got a new ladder and it's called a 5% deposit, and that will help you over this wall that we've built. Instead of demolishing the wall, admitting that they were wrong, but they never, ever do.
Isn't it like the rebates and subsidies? They say, we're going to give you a rebate on your electricity bill. So we caused the pain.
Yes.
And now we're going to give you the aspirin, which, by the way, you have to pay for anyway.
It reminds us of that scene from Happy Days, the Fonz. And he walks into the diner, and goes into the diner, and he sees this punk there, this guy who was acting tough. And he walked up to him and he says, "You're Joey, whatever the name is, aren't you?" And he goes, "Yes, I am." He says, "I saved your brother's life once." And he goes, "What do you mean you saved my brother's life?" He says, Fonz says, "I stopped hitting him." And that's the way the government treats us. They think by stopping hitting us that they're actually, helping us.
Yeah.
Just please stop hitting. And they don't even understand that. Like Leith says, the Snowy Hydro went from 2 billion to 15 billion. The NDIS was slated going to cost 14 billion. It's now up to 50. These, like you say, the blinkered zealots, ETSA, when they privatised utilities, ETSA, SA Water, the NBN, telecommunications, everything they touch turns to what.
Why don't they just leave things alone?
They can't, Jeremy. They can't leave things alone. They have to control. They are blinkered zealots. They're control freaks. It's all about planned economies and plan. There was a town in England called what's the name of it? And they started from scratch and said, right, we're going to have precincts.
Arlo? Was it called Arlo?
No, it had two words. Oh. And they said, right, we're going to zone precincts here for this is where people will shop, this is where people will work, this is where people will have recreation, and this is where they'll live. And of course, people didn't do any of that. They started, living in one place and moving, and working somewhere else. So instead of admitting and saying, well, that's what people want to do, they start putting up fences and start penalising people, because there's nothing that infuriates a central planner more than people not following their. You'll see it where they'll create a path to it. Like we've got one up at near us at the O-Barn, where there's a path from the main car park to the O-Barn platform. And, of course, people don't follow the path. They kind of go a different way. So instead of then making a path and paving a little area, they put up a fence. So then people then, create ways of getting under the fence or through the fence instead of. And they just cannot accept that people will live and do and behave the way they want to do instead of following. I mean, it's a silly thing, but why not let people just follow the path that they want to do or live where they want to live?
But that should be electorally very popular. Why aren't people voting for that?
Because the other side is the same. They're all the same.
Oh, yeah, Bob, it's called Big Daddy government and the intrusion into our private lives. And it's like Unley Council at the moment is buying up parcels of real estate, private real estate, $7+ million on the pretense they want to increase their green canopy and recreational area. And admittedly, yes, they have a shortage of that in Unley because geographically the housing that they have there. But in terms of stimulating the real estate market, there's ample historical evidence that whenever you offer an incentive or an inducement, the real estate market becomes more buoyant and the prices go up. I mean, it's just there. It happens all the time.
But they say, these things are so obvious and clear to people with common sense, but totally obscure to bureaucrats and local and state and federal government bureaucrats. They are blinkered. Blinkers is right. They can only see their own their own ideas and their own paths.
And the funny thing is, if you look at education, for example, when we used to have when I went to school, it was the sounding out of words, and it was a sensible way to teach people how to recognise words and how to read. And then they went for this, I don't know what you'd call it, this strange, you have to capture the word and remember it thing. And it didn't work. The phonics worked, but their idea didn't. And it's been a disaster, but nobody comes forward and says, whoops, sorry, got that wrong. Sorry, we apologise. That was a mess. We won't be silly like that again. Never apologise.
Never admit. They double down and then try and force people. They put forward ideas. People don't follow them, so then they try to enforce them. And then there's no lengths to what they won't go to in order to force people. They'll imprison people. They'll shut them down. They'll deplatform them. They'll censor them. All sorts of things in order to achieve their objective, how they believe that they're right. South Australia is the same. We're going down the same way. You may have seen my article in the Sunday Mail. We're into campaign mode now. And last Sunday I ran a feature on, because back in 2014, on my first day as a senator, I wrote this article in the Advertiser and said, when will South Australia shed its bludger tag? Because we've been bludging off the other states for 30 since Tom Playford days. I mean, we used to we were the number 3 state in the Commonwealth. We had 10, 20 of the top 100 publicly listed companies had their head offices in Adelaide.
Yeah.
It was you remember all the names, Faldings and all these others.
Yeah.
And of course that slowly went by the wayside, and slowly then we started to be subsidised. So now back in 2014, when I said that South Australia was a bludger state, because people used to say to me, when's South Australia ever going to stand on its own 2 feet? And it used to really annoy me. And so I wrote that article, called us the bludger state. Of course, then Premier Jay Weatherall responded by calling me an enemy of the state.
Oh, well.
And I mean, back then, we were getting 37% of our budget. The South Australian budget back in 2014 was about $20 billion that the state government. And $12 billion we raised ourselves, South Australia, from taxes and GST. And the other $7 billion we got from the other states to subsidise us. So 37% of our budget to run the state comes from cross subsidies from the other states.
Yeah.
It's now up to 41%. So we're actually getting worse.
Lost the frigging plot.
10 years later, our budget's now not 19 billion, it's 29 billion. So, you'd think that as they increase their revenue, that they'd be able to then keep their budget under control. But no, they're not capable of doing that. So of that 29 billion that the state government now spends, we only raise 17 of it ourselves, and the other 12 billion, 41%, comes from the other states. So I suppose eventually it'll come home to roost, and if the Liberals ever get their act together, perhaps they can, shine a light on the failures, because governments, oppositions don't win office. It's only governments that lose office. So
and
maybe it'll come back to home to roost. Who knows?
Ultimately becomes an issue of accountability and how we measure accountability. It's okay for the Premier of South Australia to ask for the hide of the CEO of Optus for failure to deliver on the 000 service, but in reality, the CEO would be that far removed from the actual work that caused the failure, but he's held responsible, and Malinowskis wants his hide. But why don't we ask for Malinowskis' hide for the failure of fixing the ramping problem and amongst many other things?
The hypocrisy and the double standards are breathtaking. They really are. But
why impose fines when there is corporate wrongdoing? Fines on the shareholder. Why don't you apply the fine to the CEO or the people who actually caused the problem?
Well, why don't they if they applied those fines to everybody, including themselves, but they never do.
No.
But look, Bob, their bonuses that were paid to the Qantas executives and the former chief on a failure of the organisation, and he's still being paid.
Yeah. I mean, that's for the private shareholder, but like that meeting of all the generals that you talked about earlier.
Wasn't that fun?
There's an old saying: there are no bad soldiers, only bad generals. You know that. Ain't that the truth? It's all about leadership, and everything stands or falls on the quality of leadership, whether it's at the public sector or the private sector.
Gary Googled and got this up about the controlled existence of a town or a city or a population. Harlow, Harlow, Harlow in the UK was an experimental new town, one of the first of its kind, designed after World War II to ease London's overcrowding by integrating modern living with significant green spaces and comprehensive public art programs featuring sculptures and renowned artists and ting.
Yeah, that's the one.
Total failure.
I was thinking it was a failure, but instead of sort of admitting it, then they tried another. It's called Milton Keynes, was the name of the town outside of London, and they tried the same there. Precinct everything. All right, you'll do this, you'll do that. And of course, when people started working in one town or living somewhere they weren't supposed to, they didn't accept it. They just kept doubling down all the time. That's what happens. That was in England. But speaking of England, just one last point. That terrible incident in Manchester at I've got a bit of a connection with that synagogue. It was the Heaton Park Synagogue in Crumpsall is the name of the suburb. I was actually born there.
Wow.
We came out, my parents came out when we were all small children, but my mother was very friendly. She was a nurse at the Crumpsall Hospital, and which is next door or around the corner from the Heaton Park synagogue, and she was very friendly with some of the Jewish families there, including Mrs. Friedland, who was a friend of the family. Friedland that made the door chimes, Friedland door chimes.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember those? Yeah, and the Gilsons and the Canes. I remember these, rabbis used to come and teach my friends, the little Jewish boys next door and so on. And Heaton Park was a national park. And I was actually, we lived there when I was born. I was born in Crumpsall Hospital around the corner. So with that, our family has a bit of a connection. So when I saw that in the paper, in the news this morning, it brought back memories. My dear departed mother and dad would be horrified because there were such wonderful people. There's a little retail strip called Cheetham Hill. And there's a lot of Jewish families around there, and it's really sad to see these
terrible,
wonderful little communities being so traumatized.
Yeah. Senator, have a good...
On that sad note, Jeremy. Passez un bon weekend. Have a good weekend.
Bonjour.
And we'll talk again soon.
Happy daylight saving.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Au revoir et à bientôt.
À très bientôt.
Merci beaucoup.
Au revoir, Senator Bob Day.
People, don't you understand? Your child needs a helping hand. He'll grow to be an angry young man someday. Take a look at you and me. Are we too blind to see? Or do we simply turn our heads and look the other way? Well, the world turns. Hello? And a hungry little boy with a runny nose plays in the street as the cold wind blows in the ghetto.
And the ghetto. Elvis Presley, ladies and gentlemen. You can still ring us if you like, 0491 65 68 60. We've got to have a chat to Andy Martin in a couple of seconds. John, are you there?
I am, Jeremy. Good morning or afternoon. Whatever.
No, good morning. It's morning. What's on your mind?
I've got two things on my mind.
Yep.
The first one, we were viewing the ABC here 2 days ago.
Yep.
And in that ticker tape that goes across the bottom of the screen,
Yeah.
they were saying that those who get prostate cancer will no longer be able to be treated in public hospital.
Why?
Good question. Now, we believe it's to do with the cost, but I reckon it's a second option. I don't reckon they've got people there confident enough to bloody do the procedure. It's only my opinion.
Yeah, okay. What's the other point?
The other point I want to raise, I like to see the generosity of the federal government of Australia.
You like to see the what?
I
The
love
generosity?
seeing the generosity, yeah. Here we have an issue in this state which involves 1,500 people who have disability, and they look forward to having their job, and they come out and they offer $4 million as a prop-up until someone takes it or can buy it. $4 million. And yet we can go overseas to people which, don't even live in Australia, and we can spend $600 million without even blinking a bloody eyelid. And we can only afford $4 million here. Give us a break, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Well, I think it's about 500 or 600 million to give the Papua New Guineans a rugby league team, which I cannot see. I mean, John Bruni reckons it's good soft diplomacy, but I can't see that that's good use of taxpayers' money. It's ridiculous.
I don't either, Jeremy. And let's face it, these 1,500 people that are up here at Bedford, they've got their issues with whatever disability they got, but it gives them something to get out of bed and put their bloody shoes and socks on in the morning.
Totally agree.
And if you've ever had an association with those, they used to be called sheltered workshops, those people actually love to come to work and make a contribution.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, John. Give my love to Pat. Andy Martin, we don't see you very often, but how are you?
Yeah, very well. I'm glad to be here. It's been a long time coming.
No, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
How's work at the Southern Cross Network?
Yeah, it's good. It's busy. For me, it's great. Obviously, news of not a takeover, but a merger is happening. So strengthening. Yeah, I mean,
what do you reckon's behind that?
Well, basically, traditional media have to keep alive for the future. Yeah.
But what's wrong with? I talk to people and I get the impression that time and time again I hear the expression terminal decline. And what has suddenly happened that people are not listening to the AMs and the FMs the way they used to?
Yeah, well, it's all about the conversion of digital media, and other people are listening and watching and viewing things over different platforms, say podcasting or digital radio.
Podcasting's on the way up. Lots of them.
Yeah,
including us.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this live stream gets podcasted, your videos get podcasted, and people all across the world have access to your content when, in traditional media sense, you'd only have a couple of 100,000 people a week, maybe.
Yeah, but are there too many? How do people?
Yeah, you got to filter through the masses to get to the good stuff like yours.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
How did you get into the podcasting business?
Free plug.
You know what? The way I got into podcasting is because I was driving in from Strathalbyn to the city at 3:30 in the morning. There wasn't much going on radio-wise, and you couldn't actually get any signal between, say, Wiston and Mount Barker. So I started listening to podcasts and got sucked into it and went, hang on, why am I sucked into this when I'm not listening to the station that I work for? And then kept listening to more and more podcasts, and then started a podcast myself, and then started helping other people out, and then all of a sudden, boom, Ozcast is here, and we're hooked up with Jeremy.
Well, Ozcast, how many have we got now? How many
podcasts?
Do you do?
There is 142 on the platform now. Probably about 60 are active. A lot of the others are either older or they're evergreen content, so they've just been made.
Are you looking after John Bruni's podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah. We are flogging that to the hill. Yeah. So
I think he's brilliant. Professor Plimer probably wouldn't have the time to do one, but the sort of wisdom I get from sitting around this dining room table, the knowledge I get. It's wonderful.
Well, the professor, he has got a bit of a platform because we podcast, bits of the live stream out and about, and so he does have a voice out there. But a good stat this week, we're going pretty hard with your content, where I break it up and then we publish it again. And so we like, creating content out of content, making shorter videos and things like that out of your garage video. And this week we have hit 109,000 viewers with your content. Well, not including podcasts, so just the outside stuff.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
that's
and
amazing.
It was like one of your videos hit 80,000 views and about 300 comments.
That's from the garage.
Yeah, well, just a couple of lines from one of the garage ones about like being at home as a mum. When you speak about that,
Andy, do you have a breakup of that in terms of Australia as a continent versus international?
That's over the platform, so I'd have to look at that further. But yeah, we do. Like all the data on that, including possible age brackets and where they're from and how long they listen for and why they're listening and who commented.
You would be in a position of watching this industry and category grow exponentially.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in the United States you can change an administration because of podcasters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Basically transmitting to a new audience or a younger audience. With Annika Wells, Communication Minister, and the federal government's view on information, disinformation, misinformation, do you see that this all could come to a grinding halt?
No, well, no one can ever beat the internet. It's the power of the people. No one can control it.
How do you get around the legislation if it comes in? And when you've got to be
we move our business to Estonia and work out of there and say that we're working from home. It's like music licensing. You just got to look at the laws and how to work your way around it and speak to the people that need to be spoken to. But when it comes to media, like we need the people that control change rules and things like that. They need the media to get their voices heard and to control the people, basically. So we will just pivot.
Well, we the people don't like being controlled, and I think that this some people would call it the Wild West.
I heard the start of the show. It was definitely the Wild West.
There are no rules. There are no regulations. And frankly, I would listen to a program that was spontaneous and didn't conform to certain rules and regulations.
That's why podcasting is done so well. It's all about authenticity, not about trying to contrive a bit of content and make it sound like something you're not and all that sort of stuff. So the more authentic you are, the better you're going to do. And that's what it just comes down to, really.
Have you got any of those influencer people?
Yeah, we've got heaps. Yeah, like sporting influencers and media influencers, Jeremy. But yeah, all types of people, from at-home mums right up to professionals. So
I think it's amazing that somebody sort of sits down and says, "I'm going to influence people."
Yeah. I mean,
I'm used to John Law's ego, but I think that sort of ego is amazing.
Yeah, well,
Adolf.
Yeah. Why are you growing a little moustache like that? That's weird. But it's all about authenticity when it comes down to it in content creation world, and you'll find that the ones that succeed are the ones that are just doing it because they love it.
So spontaneously, someone comes out of the pack.
Yep.
As a leader or a star or dominant. It comes without promotion, so it really is organic, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you're a likable person in that particular niche that you're creating content for, they will hang on to you and move you forth. Yeah, it'd be amazing.
The people in politics talk all the time about charisma.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But there was a time in radio, I was listening to a podcast that Jay Leno was doing.
Yep.
Caroline found it. And he was saying about this controversy in America where late-night talk show hosts are all left-wing and the jokes are all at the expense of the president.
Yep.
And they're all personal and nasty. And Jay Leno said, look, I grew up through an era successfully by telling an equal number of negative jokes about both sides of politics. Now, these days, I don't think anyone will listen to a talk show unless a talk show host sitting on the fence, trying not to offend anybody or trying to equally offend everybody. I don't. I think you've got to stand for something, or you'll fall for everything.
Yeah. You become just boring otherwise.
You've got to have an opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the authenticity.
Believe in yourself.
Sorry?
Believe in yourself.
Believe in
that's
yourself.
right, yeah.
That's true. That's one of the things we
say.
say.
And the things, once you get really high up in commercial media, like things come into play like commercial dollar, that'll control opinions, of the hosts and things like that. Whereas, in the world that we are now with new media coming through, that sort of doesn't play into as much. And, people that are doing that, you can see it a mile away. Or I can anyway.
What do you think the future holds?
What, for any particular medium?
Well, I saw that, I can't think of his name. Kieran heads up
ARN. Yeah, he's out.
Resigned.
Yep. There's always reasons why things happen behind closed doors that we don't know about, and you can read into things as you...
He's been there a long time.
Yeah, and, with what's been going on over there, he's the fall guy in the end.
Well, he's responsible for hiring...
Yeah. So he should definitely fall. Fall all the way down to the bottom, brother. But
we're talking about Kyle, by the way. Kyle and Jackie O.
Yeah, and, they've been in a world of pain for a long time. And, you spoke about it a little while back with where they tried to merge with SCA and all that sort of thing. And it was pretty, I think volatile was the word behind it. Desperate, everyone, they're cutting costs left, right and centre. So
it's not sustainable, is it, really? You can't pay these guys $100 million over 10 years.
Not when you've got the way that the new media is coming out and you're getting paid a lot less to do things. It's no longer a traditional, $500 for a live read or $5,000 or whatever they're charging. It's now per 1,000. It's based on your analytical data. So if you're not doing that well or people aren't listening to you, you're not going to get paid the same. So with these traditional mediums that are set up to basically smoke and mirror sales pitches everywhere and go, yeah, we're the best, we're number one for females that have budgies, and they sell Coca-Cola to that. This new world, it's all about how you actually are performing, and you have proof now, and there's all, government standards and things like that behind how things have, all the analytical data that comes through, so you're able to sell it properly. So when the people do love someone, then that's quite easy to sell, but you'll find a lot of the content that has been contrived over the years and created in the back end of, say, commercial radio haven't actually been listened to by the masses, and it's...
No, there's a whole generation of people.
They
don't buy newspapers, they don't listen to radio, they don't watch television, but they are on social media, they are on the internet.
Yeah, and it's all about, the marketing and the brand and things like that, and how that's portrayed to the people. And when it comes down to we're like in a traditional media sense, you're just creating content to fill time to sell ads.
Yeah. Well, that's the brutal truth.
Yeah, that is in the end. So if you can do that well, happy days. But
what do you view, Andy, as being the critical mass of viewership or listening audience? Is there a critical mass that you would?
Depends on the platform. Yeah, it's hard to say because it depends on your content and the audience that you want to find.
But at what point, for example, would a commercial entity want to invest in you to, say, advertise or sponsor?
Well, we had an interesting sort of one a little while ago where we had a really niche-y sort of podcast. Let's just say it was about farming, and another network had a client that was, say, John Deere, for example. It wasn't, but I'll just use them as an example. And they didn't have any content. So they came to us and said, can we please sponsor your podcast with our client? We'll make a partnership and we'll bring that through that way. We didn't know that was coming. That was just a once-off sort of situation. But that happens quite a bit all over the place. So it's about finding your audience. It's then finding the types of clients that would then invest in that, basically. And it's a hard one because there's so many people in the world, and it really depends on what what your story is and where you want to go with it, which would then sort of paint the picture of the types of people want to
What about
attract.
what about AI? I saw a story the other day where the Americans are getting very, very nervous about not only actors but voice actors.
Yeah.
And everybody who is his own personality or her own personality is at risk. I mean, I guess you could just go to AI and say, "Get me a podcast. These are the characteristics I want."
Yep.
Can you come up with the most popular podcast imaginable? And they probably would do it.
Well, I mean, like, are you looking over my shoulder? Because that sounds like something I do every day.
You've done. Oh, my God.
No, all media mediums are now using AI. You know, if they're not using it to create content, they're definitely using it to create the foundation of the content they're creating. So, or, you know, research and development, all that sort of stuff becomes a lot easier. So, say in relation to your podcast, I would, you know, jump on ChatGPT and just go, hey, how can we get more audience? You know, where else can we be that we're not at the moment? What types of things can I cut out of the 3-hour live stream to attract more people to listen to it? Things like that. Or, you know, even the language that we use when we're promoting and doing marketing and all that sort of stuff. So it's very helpful in that way. And because it's learning all the time, it gets better and more efficient. But yeah, when it comes down to it, it's still the authentic person that's creating the content, like yourself. You're not going to go away anytime soon. It's more just like the person that's been doing research and development for me. They're now looking for other research and development jobs.
If you had a blank piece of paper and you said, or the client, being the Liberal Party, said to you, "What do we need to do to be most effective in the media
to win an election?"
What would be your what would be a game plan?
Yeah.
Who would you enlist?
Well, to be honest with you, I'd ask ChatGPT first to give you the answer. But we'd sit down and find out what the selfish reasons are and where they want to get, say, to get voted in. Okay, well, let's create a podcast to start off with, and then we can then...
and the demographic for that podcaster would be?
Yeah, or everyone in South Australia, really, or Australia.
Not demographic audience, demographic podcaster per se.
Yeah, well, it'd be all voters, really, would be the broad audience, and then depending on...
Not the audience, the actual person who's going to do the podcast. Would you actually say that we need a young person to get the young vote now? Might be a personal question asking you that.
It depends on what you have access to. It's about time and resource as well. So if you had resource, say, no budgets, it was just they threw money at you, or you go hire someone that has a brand already or, is aware. So it doesn't even have to be someone that's part of the party. It could be... To give you an example, back in the day, when I was working in traditional radio, one of the other ones, they had a client and we had just built a website, and that client needed to get more people to their site or to get the word around that their product is really good. So what they did is, in the back end of the website, they created some articles that were talking about that particular product, not their client, but just the product being awesome. So it would just float around Google and it would just do some back end sort of, helping of that product. And that was part of the sales sort of package that they got. Similar thing with the whole podcasting thing. We would look at trying to get to people without a sales pitch. It'd be about trying to mould that content into something that they would naturally press play and then hit subscribe to. So they might not even know that it's part of the party. It could be a subject that is something that they want to drive, say. It could be a whole podcast on why hospitals have the ramping. Yeah. And that's it. But it's been funded by the party. Okay. Stuff like that. Yeah.
But it's got to be useful.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It's got to have that authentic thing that people can then
get something out of,
and then they can possibly learn something or do something with, and in this case, it'd be about changing minds. So something like that. But you'd sit down and have a meeting about it first, and you just got to cut to the chase. What are you really here for? What do you want to do? And then we work back from there. Yeah.
Brave new world. Brave new world.
Anyway, that's my business case that everyone now knows.
Well, are you out there recruiting? You don't smoke a big cigar and you don't go up to somebody and say, "I got to make you a star."
Yeah, I like to be different. That's what I do. Run no more. I'm just sitting there.
But out there's probably somebody who is completely undiscovered but has some thing, some magical. I don't know.
About a month ago, we created the Ozcast Creator Plus program, where people can actually come along and they be part of it, and they can create their own podcast, and we just see where it goes. So absolutely, it's all about discovering new talent. Everyone's always trying to discover the next new talent that they can either help out or coach. The traditional media are sort of struggling to work that out because they're trying to work out.
Does it have a future?
Yeah, but in a different form. It won't be a traditional, on the dial sort of, looking for the frequency sort of situation. It will just be literally a platform. You go to it and you listen.
So what happens to people who have invested $150 million in an FM license?
Well, they try to sell it like Channel 9 and everyone else that are trying to sell off their stuff right now.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because they're not selling it, they're sort of selling it at a bargain price. Tony told me it was about $50 million or something that they were selling all of their radio assets.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it...
They got a bid for 30.
30 is about what they've been offered.
30, they've been offered 30.
Which years ago would get you one station.
Well, that would have got Oh, my God.
Remember when they were paying $60 million for a license and things like that? Yeah, definitely not the case now. And, when it comes down to it, what are you actually buying? The brand? That's probably about it, and a lot of problems.
The market is there for somebody as a radio guru to come in and say, okay, you've been going down the wrong path for so long.
Yeah.
I'll change everything.
Yeah, a good thing to look at would be, how I think probably Listener. I'm biased because I work with them, but with Listener, part of SEA, the way that is, sort of steering the business in that direction from away from the traditional method. And they've made their own platform where other traditional media platforms are just like licensing, or they're just partnering with people. So that's where it's kind of going. So in relation to buying old gear and transmitters and stuff, well, unless you're going to be doing some sort of emergency network thing where the government can fund you and, you're in the country and all that sort of stuff, but it's just too hectic with maintenance and things like that.
The parallel would be traditional taxi licenses, and then the government let in Uber. And Uber
that's
was
right.
a different way of doing things, and the public likes it. So traditional taxi licenses drop value.
Because the thing is, when
evolution,
when the Elon Musks of the world has internet all over the country without having to even think about it, all those transmitters become extinct completely because you can jump on any platform and listen to any content or be alerted to any sort of information that comes through at any time. So as we see with people travelling in the country with their what are they called, the Tesla. The internet?
Well, the little shoebox.
Skylink.
Skylink.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's a perfect example. It's going to wipe out all this traditional ways of communication.
So really in your market now, the so-called finger, the like, is the be and end all? That's how it sort of multiplies?
Yeah.
What's the multiplying factor that someone's watching a podcast? Is it the liking or the sharing or...
Well, when you're a network, it's about generating an income, and it's not just about generating income for the network. It's about generating income for the podcasters, so they finally get paid to do what they love to do. Likes and sharing, and like I said, with what we've done this week, especially, is just go hard on platforms that aren't podcast related, more social media and other marketing platforms, and seeing how that goes. So we're always evolving and looking at different ways of doing things, whether that be breaking up the content that's already out there and pushing it out in different directions, or is it creating podcasts out of podcast content? Is it, integrating other podcasters, and having a chat, and, it's all about, in the end, it's about marketing. But we predominantly, the result is the like, but for us, it's definitely just trying to get the content to people's ears. Wherever it can be.
And the big thing that I think that the feedback I've had, and I've mentioned to Jeremy, is that people who want to listen to this show and a repeat of the Friday morning live stream is the access to it.
Yeah.
But now that it's on YouTube and through Facebook immediately, people can play that back now at their will.
Yep, correct.
And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and selfishly for us, it's not just the content, it's the data that comes through with it, so we can see how many people have listened to it, where they've listened to it, how long they've listened to it for before they start to, get tired, or if they listen to the full thing. And, it's about that. So then we can educate not just the people that are buying into it from an ad point of view, but also educate the people doing the podcast, because we always get asked, what is the perfect length, and all that sort of thing.
I guess the data would also give you the ability of monitoring like a sine wave during the show.
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
People are listening, have turned off, come back again.
Yep. So, like what we've got going on here is, a live stream essentially. So we can see the data as that's going, but then we can see what people do after the fact. So, like you said, going to the podcast and listening to it again, do they listen to a particular person? Is it always Ian Plimer? Is it the best of Les?
Yes.
We can sort of see that once we.
Can you imagine getting a ratings day every minute?
I was going to say, it makes a mockery of the traditional ratings method of diaries and things, which are potentially so inaccurate.
Yeah, well, the scary thing for all the traditional media is if they change the way they do things, it'll be quite obvious that either there'll be a real big winner and a lot of losers, or they'll find out that the whole thing is a loser. Not many people are actually listening to it, and is it only in the background? Is it only on because they by accident? Is it because the card they bought, only plays them? All that sort of stuff.
And music, I can't understand radio stations, conventional terrestrial radio stations, having a music format, because you can have your Google Nest over there or whatever it is and just say, hey, Google, play me whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why a lot of these, when all those Google Nest sort of things started popping out, all the traditional media, say radio stations especially, they jumped on and partnered with, say, Amazon or Google, and they wanted to be. So if you said, hey, play me Chubby Checker, it would automatically play Chubby Checker radio from your station.
And it would then go on playing things from the same genre.
Correct, and a few ads along the way.
Do not say, hey, Google, because it goes off.
Hey, Google.
Sorry, Google.
Hey, Alexa.
Well, I don't want you going off in the kitchen.
Hey, Google, subscribe to every Jeremy Cordeaux product we have.
Excellent idea. Is there if you were going to sort of put out a thing into the
world
podosphere, and say, look, I'm looking for, is there a category, a genre, a subject, a thing that you need somebody to do a podcast on?
Can you answer that, but answer my question first?
Okay.
Is talkback in preference to just listening to a music station or a live stream with multiple guests? Which way is it going?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, like, obviously the podcasting space, because when it, music-wise, it comes down to licensing. So licensing is quite difficult when you podcast music because with APRA in Australia, who looks after the licenses for music, you can buy a license for your podcast up to a certain standard, up to a certain amount of listens per year or whatever, and you pay a payment to them. Happy days. But as soon as you podcast it to a different country, you've got to go to their APRA and you've got to pay them a license. And some do have them, some don't. Some care about it, some don't. But when it comes down to it, those record labels who run APRA and all the other music licensing places online, if it's not looked into at the moment, it will be in the future. And because podcasts stay up for as long as you want it to be, you'll get pinged in the future. So when it comes to music, you've only got a few certain platforms to do that, and you've got to pay licensing and all that sort of stuff. Whereas talk, you don't have to pay for licensing. So, and if there is any production licenses you need to pay for, well, then you pay them up front for music and things like that. But streaming music and streaming commercial music, from our point of view, we try not to do that. If we do, we only have a license within Australia, and we only play within Australia.
So are listeners now more keen on podcasts that talk?
Yeah, I think so.
Commentary?
Yeah, I mean,
it's got to be stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, they're there to get something out of it. If they want music, they go to Spotify. If they want talk, they go to podcasts.
But what about things like finance? I mean, I can see people. I was trying to get Peter Switzer on the program this morning.
Yeah,
he was busy, but I can sort of see people like Peter Switzer having an enormous following.
Yeah, the amazing thing with stuff like that is people want to hear it, but then the people that are actually sort of that can host it sometimes don't want to do it because their advice may go wrong, and all of a sudden they've got lawsuits on their hands. So I know we're going to do one with some mortgage brokers, and they got a bit funny about giving out advice on a podcast because it's not like radio where it's like just goes out once.
Yeah.
Happy days. It's just on that day. Great. But if you listen to a podcast 2 years later and you do whatever they've said and then all of a sudden it turns bad.
Have you got a real estate podcast?
No, it was more just interviewing real estate agents within a business podcast.
Do you have a handle on Sam Bamford, Two Worlds Collide? That's fairly out there in terms of the content he's broadcasting.
Yeah, well,
how popular is he?
I'm not too sure. I'd have to look into that. It's hard because, like I said, they could have a brand and it could look like it's a very popular podcast, but it might not be. I mean, some of the most popular people that you know have podcasts and they might only be getting 20 listens a day. Podcasting is a thing where the top 10% or the top 1% in the world have huge amounts of listens, and the rest all share a very similar amount of listens. So it's
principle.
So it's just, from our point of view, it's all about just trying to go traditional, but also really looking for those real nichey, non-sort of specific areas where you could listen to content.
Why do they call it podcast?
Well, it all started with the iPod, I believe.
Oh, pod.
So you could cast on iPods.
iCast would sound better, wouldn't it? iCast.
Yeah, you know what? It could have been called that originally, but they might have changed it because it sounded better. I don't know. Yeah.
Who rates better, men or women?
Or it depends on the content.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all have their own followers. Like the female ones have a huge female base, obviously. It depends on what they're talking about. But say with yours, it's majority male out of the two.
Would you be allowed to have something like the Happy Hooker?
I would love something like the Happy Hooker.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Are you talking about a podcast?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So I thought we'd stopped recording.
No. We're still rolling.
I am into anything that's not standard as well. Like we looked at talking to flight attendants about stories that they can't talk about normally, but we then changed the name. Yeah, flying high, or things that happen when they go out, or poor customers, all that sort of stuff. People's benders that they go on, and the adventures that happen through that, and creating a podcast series out of that.
Well, Tony could do that for you because he spends most of his life in the air.
Yeah, flying high.
If he's not in the air, he's on the air. So, I mean, a podcast for people who want to talk about aeroplanes and flying high. Well, not so much talk about aeroplanes, but funny stories.
Yeah, well, it's about working out your niche and what you like to talk about.
The ones I already listened to.
Oh, my God.
Is Jeremy on there?
He was.
He's taken me off.
Yeah, retired that one.
I've been retired.
There's lots of aircraft geek ones there. And,
yeah.
Stuff. Aviation. Lots of
Yeah. So it's about creating the content, working out who your customer base should be, and then pointing in that direction, hoping for the best.
It's a whole world, isn't it? When you think of all of the little specialty niches, the little things that you could be doing.
Like the IAB, which are the guys that sort out the categories worldwide, so we follow a bit of a thing. Like there's main categories like business and sport and comedy, but then there's like subcategories within that, so like business, and then it could be like home lending and things like that. Yeah. So, there's so much out there.
Well, Jay Leno does a wonderful thing on his car collection, and he goes through his and other people's car collections and does it well. Seems to be happier doing that than he was when he was doing the Tonight Show.
Has he put a call into you yet?
No.
JJ.
I'm off the radar, which is happy. I like being off the radar.
So that's where we're at the moment. We are technically flying high. So
well, how are the girls?
The girls are fantastic. Yeah, they're on school holidays at the moment. Yeah, holy moly,
God.
It's like two little teenagers.
How old are they now?
5 and 7.
Oh, you've got a whole whole world of joy.
Yeah, it was good for the first few years. I was like, oh, they're so cute. And then they started to get opinions and growing up and stuff.
You wait, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Andy,
how is Amber going?
Amber's fine.
Yours is still cheap, Andy.
Yeah, they are.
Amber's probably a bit more expensive.
Well, I think the older they get, the more expensive they get. That's part of the evolution of womanhood.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, they're definitely digging in now. But, no, they're great. They're great.
Influences yet?
They both have their own podcast.
Say it
So,
again, I can't-
yeah.
Influences.
Oh, they're influencers?
Yeah.
You got them in the business?
Yeah, I got them in the business early. Like Millie was 2, and we created Millie the Yellow Cow. So because I created some 2-minute short story podcasts called Maxie the Puppy, and it was just like this puppy that I narrate, and it goes for 2 minutes for kids.
What a wonderful dad you are.
Yeah, thank you. And then once we split with her mother, I said to the girls, hey guys, I want to be the best dad in the world. What animal would you be if you were going to be an animal? And George was like, a rainbow unicorn, because she was a 3. And I was like, great. And then I was like, Millie, what would you like? She's like, a yellow cow. And I was like, sorry, what? All right. So we created Millie the Yellow Cow and Georgia the Rainbow Unicorn, and created some stories, and they all sort of combine with each other.
They have unrestricted use of mobiles?
No.
You're
They have
there?
got highly restricted iPads. They have a small amount of time on.
You're kind of the Walt Disney of the digital world.
Well, thank you very
aren't you?
much. Hopefully that,
well,
he was
that's
great
a
the
bit
whole way
dangerous.
through, wasn't he? Yeah. Was there any bad stuff
yes.
attached to that?
No bad stuff.
Oh,
no.
great. Yeah, no, thank you. I try.
So it's just wonderful to ponder the future as to, people sort of sit and they worry about things like podcasting and AI and how that's going to affect them.
Yeah, it's all about,
But they all
we're
do
still
it
going to be
from-
here. We're just going to pivot a little
But
bit.
people do it from a negative point of view. I think we should be like Tony and think about all of this technology stuff as being incredibly positive.
Yeah.
We don't know where it's going to go. We just have to make sure it goes somewhere good.
Yep, correct.
We can do that.
Yeah, if it's there to be used, give it a crack, see if it works, and then if it works in a positive way, then keep using it. If not, forget about it and move on to the next thing, because there'll be something else that comes out further. So,
Well, you're wonderful. Thank you for all you do for us.
thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Andy Martin, ladies and gentlemen.
Can't find a friend, you still got the radio. Singing with the radio. Can't find a friend, you still got the radio. The radio. Listen to the radio. The radio. Listen to the radio. Still got the radio. Listen to the radio. The radio. Listen to the radio.
Listen to the radio, ladies and gentlemen. You can listen to the radio, and we call this radio, but it is live streaming around the world from the dining room table, jeremycordeaux.com. We call it the Court of Public Opinion, and we broadcast on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. Well, actually, we post a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock and Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. A posting which, I don't know. I never know what I'm going to say. I just sit there and say it. I promised Pete that I would ring him. Maybe he'll answer the phone, maybe he won't.
Might be on his drive home.
Well, we're way over time. Well, it's all right. At least I can say, honestly, I tried to call him back, which is most
And there's
important.
proof.
Yep.
Thanks for your call. I'm unable to take your call. Please call me back later.
Please leave a detailed message after the tone. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, Pete.
The producers
Hi,
walked in.
Pete. I just
There's a look.
Tried to keep faith. We're running a bit late. Anyway, I hope you're well, Peter, and talk to us next week. Okay. Caroline is reading the riot act because we're over time. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Liz.
My pleasure. I thank
Gary?
you. Don't forget, people, change your clocks.
Andy.
No worries. Thank you.
And Tony. And thank you. See you on Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. That's with the Facebook posting, the Court of Public Opinion from the Garage. And if you think this is weird, that is even more weird. Believe in yourself. And goodbye for now.
We're together, right or wrong. Where you go, I'll tag along. Remember
me, I'm the one.